Hello everyone, Rich Hagan, Maria Bartholdi, Simon Gerton and Louis Scott Vargas. We're here to tell you all about Day 3 of Pro Tour Rivals of Ixalan, because it's going to be amazing. It's going to feature 8 fantastic players, 8 lovely human beings, and 8 really, really sweet decks. Let's get straight to the bracket and show you what's going to come your way today. We're going to start in the bottom half of the bracket with Ken Yukihiro against Reid Duke and Luis Salvatto against Jean-Emmanuel Depraz. And then our second set of quarterfinals will be the top half, Viren against Mengucci, Dominguez against Thompson. Now, the eagle-eyed amongst you will have spotted that Javier Dominguez is the 4th seed. When we looked at the provisional standings last night, went through, crunched all the numbers from round 16, the tie breaks were in fact a little out, and in fact, Javier Dominguez is the 4th seed. He still plays Jerry Thompson. That hasn't changed. They're in the same half of the bracket. That's the same. But it does mean that Javier Dominguez will have the choice to play or draw in their match. So that's the state of play. Yukihiro, Duke, Salvatto, Depraz is where we're going to start. So, Maria, take it away.
Let's kick things off with Ken Yukihiro. There he is. He is a Platinum Pro on Team Musashi, the reigning Team Series champions. This is his 4th Pro Tour top 8, most recently 3rd at Pro Tour Amonkhet. He is a Platinum Pro, has more than $100,000 in lifetime earnings. But let's take a look at his deck. And this is the deck that a lot of people have been talking about, Luis. Black, red, hollow one. What the heck is this?
So what this deck is trying to do is kind of reflected in the name. It's trying to cast as many hollow ones as quickly as possible. It uses cards like Burning Inquiry, Goblin Lore, and other cyclers to just discard a bunch of cards and just throw a bunch of hollow ones into play. You know, you also get to discard cards like Bloodghast and Flamewake Phoenix, bring those back for free. It is trying to cheat on mana. It's trying to put tons of power and toughness into play without spending a whole lot of mana.
You know, a lot of people in Modern pack Graveyard hate. Is this deck susceptible to that or not so much?
It has some cards which are impacted by that, you know, Bloodghast and Flamewake Phoenix for sure. But it also has cards like Hollow One, which can ignore, you know, any graveyard hit your opponent might throw at you.
All right, well, let's take a look at his opponent for this game, Reid Duke. There you see him, Team Ultimate Guard, a Platinum Pro, his 3rd Pro Tour top 8, most recently Eldritch Moon in Sydney, and 6 Grand Prix titles under his belt as well. Reid Duke playing what he likes to play best, Abzan. Okay, so Luis, before this tournament, he tweeted out, all 20 articles I read say Tarmogoyf and Liliana are bad, a lesson or a challenge. Looks like he took it as a challenge.
Yeah, Reid is playing the Abzan deck that I think everyone predicted he would play. He's in the middle of like a 15-part series on Channel Firewall talking about Thoughtseize and Fatal Push. It's, you know, my Abzan Chronicles. Like, he really does love this deck. He has played different variants of this deck tournament after tournament. It's not a surprise to me that because of his team not coming to a firm consensus, he decided to play what he knew.
So was this a good choice, not only just for Reid Duke because he loves this deck, he plays this deck, but for the tournament overall, do you think? Any deck that has a bunch of 1-mana hand disruption and cheap answers and Tarmogoyf, you know, is going to be a competitive deck. And Reid is just trying to disrupt his opponent with those 1-mana hand disruption spells and then clock them with Tarmogoyf, Grimplayer, Lingering Souls.
So let's stay with that quarterfinal just for a little bit longer. Simon, what's your read on Ken versus Reid? What should we be looking out for as the viewer who perhaps hasn't seen 16 rounds already of this tournament?
So what's important is that Reid doesn't really have a way to deal with a large army that comes down early. So if there are 2 or 3 hollow ones just landing on turn 2, Reid really needs something like a Maelstrom Pulse. Otherwise, he just will succumb to the beatdown. And Ken's deck is super explosive, but also more fragile, of course, than something like Abzan.
Luis, you're no Frank Carsten, I think we can agree. But have you done the math? When we see these hollow ones, are they the exception to the rule when we just see them blurting out onto the battlefield, or is that exactly what it's meant to do and the math says, yep, I have exactly the right number of cards in my deck that allow this to happen with regularity?
Well, as Frank would say, you have a little bit more additional information. The fact that Ken Yukihiro is in the top 8 means he probably averages a higher number of hollow ones than the average person playing the deck.
that is true.
So, and the key is to not randomly discard them.
This is true, yes. You know, Goblin Lore does discard at random. You don't want to discard your hollow ones there.
Okay, so so that's kind of quite a high tension, high variance moment when we're seeing the hollow one. We saw some great stuff on camera with that. Let's turn our attention. Let's look at the bracket once again. So that's Ken Yukihiro against Reid Duke on the other side, down at the bottom there, we're going to see Luis Salvatto against Jean-Emmanuel Depraz. So let's take a look at Luis Salvatto for you. There he is, the gold pro from Argentina, part of Team Harry Latin, doing a fantastic job there. This is his second Pro Tour top 8 Grand Prix top 8s, 5 of them Team Grand Prix champion, that is, in Rotterdam in 2016. Let's take a look at his deck. Here it is. It's Lantern control. So let's just do this once, chat. You can go, yay, if you're a Lantern fan, or boo if you hate Lantern, because we understand that it's a little bit polarizing. So let's get that out of the way, and then let's just settle in, Simon, to what is an incredible deck, and just shows what Magic can do with thousands and thousands of cards in a pool.
Yes, it shows off the uniqueness of the modern format. You can win not by dealing damage, not by dealing poison, and to be fair, not even running your opponent out of cards. You're winning because they just don't have any chance whatsoever to draw out of the lock you've assembled. Ensnaring Bridge means you can't be attacked. With Lantern of Insight and something like Codex Shredder, you make sure that they don't draw any outs. And if there are other combo pieces, you can lock them out with Witchbane Orb or Grafdigger's Cage. There's just no way you can lose from a certain board state.
If you follow Justin Cohen on Twitter, he's the roommate of Sam Black. Justin Cohen released last night, when Piotr Glagowski, who was also playing Lantern, didn't make the top 8. He released this essentially Lantern guide, and it was 35 pages of PhD level analysis. Did you get a glimpse of that, Luis?
So Justin is on our team. You know, he's prepared with Ultra Pro and Channel Fireball numerous times. So he'd been talking to us throughout the tournament, and you know, it takes longer to read this document than it does to play a match of Lantern, which does say words as to how long it is.
I must admit, there's some very, very long words in that document. It's absolutely great. You should check it out because it's just a great read. But that is Luis Salvatto with Lantern. He's against Jean-Emmanuel Depraz, Simon. Here he is, the Grand Prix Warsaw champion. That's how he qualified for here. It's his second Pro Tour. He went 9-7 a couple of years back. So here he is. I think one of the big things about him is Guillaume Waffatapa, when told by Guillaume Matignon, the former world champion, that Depraz was in the top 8, Waffatapa just went, well, of course, he's really good. Although he's perhaps one of the least known of our top 8, we shouldn't discount him at all. Let's take a look at his deck. Here it comes. And this is Traverse Shadow. All right, that sounds like a hybrid smash 'em up. So what's going on, Simon?
It is a hybrid deck. We're calling it Traverse Shadow because it's not Grixis Death Shadow. That's the main difference, Traverse the Ulvenwald. And then you have different routes you can take. You can play Jund, you can play Jund splashing white. Despres is actually playing Jund splashing blue with white cards in the sideboard. So we could call it 5-color Death Shadow, but it's still very Jundy.
Does he have any tools in his deck, main board, to break the lock that Lantern Control is trying to put on him?
I think I like his chances. He has, of course, the discard spells. Both players are going to play with Inquisition of Kozilek and Thoughtseize, but for Depraz, it's more important to fire them off to just make sure that an early lock piece doesn't come down. And then there are 3 Stubborn Denials, 2 Abrupt Decays. That's not too much for game 1, but he has some ways to break the lock, yes.
Luis, Tarmogoyf, it feels like it's a card that sort of goes in and out of not popularity exactly, almost fashion. It seems kind of strange that, you know, here's Reid with 4 copies, here's Jean-Emmanuel with 4 copies, and it's like, oh yeah, you know, that whole kind of 5, 6, 6, 7 thing for 2 mana. Turns out that's quite good still.
Yeah, there was some time where Death Shadow stole the spotlight, and you know, both creatures will be very competitive with each other, but turns out 2 mana 6/7 still a pretty good deal in Modern, so I'm not surprised to see some people show up with Tarmogoyf.
I want to know kind of the choice of choosing Traverse Shadow over just choosing something like Death Shadow. What is the reason you would go with this instead
I suggested to Luis to play Traverse Shadow, but he decided to play Grixis Death Shadow instead, so maybe we can hear it from a proto competitor.
So what actually happened is Simon said I should play Grixis Death Shadow.
That's just not true.
But the choice of Traverse, it makes your deck a little bit slower in the sense that Traverse has less utility on turn 1 than something like Serum Visions or Thought Scour, but it is more consistent in that you just have more copies of Death Shadows and Tarmogoyfs.
Okay, so we've got King Yukihiro and Reid Duke coming right up. Well, that's where we're going to start. Give me a prediction, Luis. So Black Red Hollow 1 against Abzan. ignoring that it's Ken Yukihiro against Reid Duke. Just those two decks sitting on a table, what tends to happen?
The Hollow One deck is ahead, I believe.
Okay. Simon, agree?
Yes, absolutely.
All right, so that's advantage Ken Yukihiro. And then Salvato with Lantern against Despres with Traverse Shadow. Lantern against Traverse, Luis?
I like the Traverse side of the matchup. I think that it's got enough disruption to really test Lantern.
It will test it, but it's still a really close matchup. I think it can go either way.
All right. Well, the great news is that the players are in our feature match area, so let's get this show on the road. Here come the first set of quarterfinals of Pro Tour Rivals of Ixalan.
Oh my golly gosh, ladies and gentlemen, we are just about to get stuck in here at Pro Tour Rivals of Ixalan. I can't believe my luck because my name's Riley. I'm stuck here with Paul Cheon in the booth and it is about to heat up. Down to the feature match area. Let's not waste any more time. It's time to get underway with the first quarterfinal here at Pro Tour Rivals of Ixalan. What's up? Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to live coverage of Pro Tour Rivals of Ixalan. It is Sunday. It is time for the top 8. And I tell you what, I couldn't be more pleased to bring it to you live from Bilbao in Spain. My name's Riley Knight, and my colleague to my right here from Wizards R&D, it is, of course, Paul Humph Cheon. Paul, good morning to you, my friend. Thanks for being with us. It's a real doozy we got lined up for our first quarterfinal.
Yeah, we have Reid Duke with his trusty old Abzan mid-range deck. You know, turns out Tarmogoyf is still very alive and doing well in this format. Yeah, a lot of people talk about Death Shadow kind of being the new best creature in Modern, but turns out Tarmogoyf is still up there. And he's going up against Ken Yukihiro on Black-Red Hollow One.
Black-Red Hollow One. It is very much the old guard of Modern Magic against a new, hot and fresh competitor here in the form of Black-Red Hollow One. Hollow One is a card.
Oh, here we go. Here we go. Turn one right off the bat. Right off the bat. Let's go.
He's kept a
Burning Inquiry.
With a Burning Inquiry.
And he's got 2 Hollow Ones in his hand.
This could be over before it's even begun. Oh, my goodness me. Straight up to 11 here with Ken.
He's just like, okay, this is it. How many Hollow Ones do I get to keep in my hand?
So essentially, everyone that remains in his hand after this random discard here, every single one that remains in his hand will then be put on the battlefield for free.
All right. So if you guys don't know what this does, Burning Inquiry is a 1-mana sorcery. Each player draws 3 cards and discards 3 cards at random. Because Ken Yukihiro has already cycled his tree wraith, that would mean that he's discarded 4 cards this turn. Meaning, any copies of Hollow One in his hand, he gets to play for free. On turn 1.
On turn number 1, slamming 4/4s into play. We don't know what those cards are. We have the actual, literal slow roll here.
He's not flipping him over right away. All right, here we go. What did he disc? No Hollow Ones! No Hollow Ones!
2 Hollow Ones into play on turn number 1.
And Reid Duke discarded this. 2 Hollow Ones, turn 1.
Turn 1, 2 4/4s. Your turn, he says to Reid Duke. Now, Reid Duke has kept a 6-land hand. It does have one of his main deck copies of Nihil Spellbomb, although he discarded it, Paul.
He did. He discarded it at random, and not only that, I actually think Ken Yukihiro might have wanted to consider cycling. He has a Street Wraith in his hand. If he cycles a Street Wraith and finds another Hollow One, couldn't he have played it this turn? I'm not sure.
Well, he chose not to in any case.
It's still a new deck.
It's still looking pretty good. However, for our hero here, Ken Yukihiro, unbelievable stuff as we see 2 of these Hollow Boys getting up and about on turn number 1. Reid Duke's got to look at his hand. What can he put together here?
And when you play, this is the ideal start. The thing is, Ken Yukihiro got to go first, which is huge. Reid Duke being on the play allows him to play hand disruption spells like Inquisition and Thoughtseize to get rid of cards like Faithless Looting and Burning Inquiry. But because he was on the draw, Ken Yukihiro was able to put 2 Hollow Ones on the battlefield. And this Inquisition, not really going to do a whole lot right now.
Oh no, it's discarded a Flamewake Phoenix.
Oh, and that is so bad because Ken Yukihiro already has 4 power creatures on the battlefield. Now, talking to Reid Duke, he was not a big fan of this matchup. And he said, if there's a chance for me to win in this matchup, it's by playing a Tarmogoyf. Ken Yukihiro does not have a main deck way to deal with a 5/6 Tarmogoyf. These Hollow Ones are merely just 4/4s. He's got Gurmag Anglers, which are 5/5s. But if he can find a Tarmogoyf and play it on turn 2, he might be okay. But he's taking 10.
attack for 10 on turn 2, an attack for 10. That Inquisition actually ended up favouring Ken Yukihiro. Reid Duke's discard spell actually did a favour for his opponent. Yukihiro has got Reid Duke on the ropes. Oh my goodness, down to 7.
Yeah, and now he has to use a fetch line to go down to 6. And I think he has a Tarmogoyf in hand, but because Ken Yukihiro has 2 Hollow Ones and a Flamewake Phoenix, even if the Tarmogoyf blocks one of the Hollow Ones, that's still 6 points of damage.
And one of the
I think we're going to see a turn 3 kill from the Black-Red Hollow One deck.
Black-Red, the thing about Hollow One here is that it's immune to Lightning Bolt and Fatal Push, 2 cards that are overplayed in Modern. And as you said, Reid Duke just does not have the answer here to such an enormously quick start. A Tarmogoyf's a great play, but right now, Ken Yukihiro can force through the damage. Reid Duke is going down on turn number 3.
He is dead on board. Reid Duke also plays cards like Abrupt Decay, also a card that can't get the Hollow One off the board.
Duke now. Oh my goodness. I mean, this is blink and you'll miss it magic. Ken Yukihiro is showing us this new kid on the block, and he's already had a bunch of hits with it. He's unbelievable to see the pace at which this game has played out. Reid Duke has just had one of the most terrific draws here.
Good game.
And unfortunately, Reid Duke has to go down. He says it was a good game.
Oh, man.
My goodness me, I'm sure Ken Yukihiro agrees with him, but that is that. Game number 1 in the books. If you'd blinked, you would have missed it here. Ken Yukihiro was got up and about
if you went to get up,
way.
go to the restroom or maybe get a drink, this game was already over.
Yeah, this is not the time to go and do that sort of thing. You can see things at a slightly more slower pace on our back table there, Paul Chiam.
We might be able to get to that match. I'm just going to say. Just a wild guess.
Getting it done on the back table. But that is that for game number 1. Don't go anywhere, of course. Plenty more action coming your way here from Pro Tour Rivals of Ixalan from Bilbao, Spain. Riley and I, Paul Chiam in the booth. We've got to go to a break, but after just a few minutes, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back live from Pro Tour Rivals of Ixalan.
Up your game with Ultra Pro Magic the Gathering accessories. Find the best Magic art on card sleeves, deck boxes, playmats, and more. Visit ultrapro.com to learn more and find a retailer near you.
So Magic the Gathering Arena, we chose that word arena very particularly because an arena is a place where people gather, where people come to compete, where people come to spectate and cheer on their favorites. It really is a place where the whole community can come together and experience the very best of what Magic has to offer.
And welcome back to the feature match area here at Pro Tour Rivals of Ixalan, coming at you live, hot and fresh out the kitchen from Bilbao in Spain. My name's Riley and I, joined by Paul Chiam. Of course, time for us to take a live look in on our back table. And Paul, maybe we can bring things down a notch here as we subject the viewers to the auditory and the ocular pleasure that is Lantern Control.
Well, it looks like Luis has basically the lock set in place. He's got a pithing needle on the battlefield. Not really sure what it's naming. I think it's Street Race, which actually allows him to control Jean-Emmanuel's draws even more. He's got that Ensnaring Bridge with the Lantern and a Codex Shredder as well. And Jan does not really have a whole lot of answers. He's not playing like the traditional Grixis Shadow version, which plays multiple copies of Snapcasters along with Kolaghan's commands. He's only got 2 copies of Abrupt Decay and 1 Snapcaster Mage as the way to basically deal with an Ensnaring Bridge if it hits the board.
And this is what you were telling me over the break here. It actually looks a lot worse for Depraz, the fact that he's playing this Traverse list rather than the straight Grixis. Grixis obviously has 4 copies of, or multiple copies of Kolaghan's command, additional copies of Snapcaster Mage to flash it back. Depraz is in a bad spot here because he's only got, what, a couple of Abrupt Decays, and that's about it. Absolutely,
absolutely. It seems like, yeah, Luis is basically setting up here. He used that Kolaghan's command to get back in Ancient Stirrings to try to find another mana rock. At the same time, he's using the Academy Ruins to ensure that he draws the Codex Shredder this turn as well. So it looks like Luis is very, very likely to win this game.
Yeah, this is the point at which Lantern Control really is just wrapped up all the percentage points and just has to play it out. So given that it's an untimed quarterfinal, I'm sure we're going to get to see more of Lantern Control before the end of today. So we are going to check back in with Yukihiro and Duke. We know that Yukihiro got up in game 1 in exceptional circumstances, 2 hollow ones on turn number 1. Let's see if he can run it back in game number 2, or is Mr. Magic going to have something to say about it? We don't have any sideboards just yet, Paul. It's best of 5 in the top 8, and so as we see these players get underway now, it is with their game 1 decks once again.
Yeah, we play 2 games of main deck matches, followed by up to 3 more sideboarded games here. And now Reid Duke's got to be feeling a lot better because he is on the play. He can use the Hand Disruption spell to take potential Burning Inquiry out of Yukihiro, and he did have the Burning Inquiry.
Look at
he
this.
had it. And he's going to take that right away.
Yukihiro was so ready to slam 2 hollow ones into play on turn number 1 again, but Reid Duke is like, I don't think so this time, my friend.
Yeah, but now Ken is going to cycle the Street Wraith here. Still look for another Burning Inquiry or even a Faithless Looting.
Faithless Looting would do it.
If
yeah,
he found it, given that he's cycled Street Wraith, which is a discard effect, in addition with the Faithless Looting, he would have been able to play those hollow ones in hand. But it looks like he cycled Street Wraith and whiffed. He does not have a discard outlet. The deck plays the full 12 copies, 4 copies of Burning Inquiry, 4 Goblin Lures, 4 Faithless Lootings.
He's got a bit of a loosey-goosey hand here. It's not looking great for him because his hand right now is 4 lands and multiple cards that cost 5 or more. This is not how you win games of Modern in a traditional sense, Paul.
Yeah, but can you imagine if Reid Duke just didn't have the Hand Disruption spell on turn 1? His hand would be fantastic. Yeah. He would have multiple hollow ones to potentially play on turn 1. And if Reid Duke didn't nab the Tasigur, if the Tasigur didn't get nabbed, he'd be able to play that on turn 2 as well with the help of the Burning Inquiry.
And actually, I mean, things aren't looking that bad for the Japanese player here because, of course, he does have plenty of fetch lands. He's got ways to cast Tasigur as early as next turn, perhaps, if his draw treats him well. And so Reid Duke, however, has got off to a great start. Discard spell into a Scavenging Ooze. And this card's going to be very useful, especially against all those Bloodghast and Flamewake Phoenixes.
Yeah, it's going to be great against those. And one of Reid's keys to the matchup here, Reid was, I talked to Reid briefly while he was kind of testing this matchup and asking how he felt about the matchup. And he's like, well, you know what? I like the matchup game 1. Or I like the matchup more game 1. He doesn't like the matchup overall, but he likes it more because Ken Yukuhiro does not have a main deck way to deal with a 6/6 Scavenging Ooze, a 5/6 Tarmogoyf. So that's kind of his main game plan. Get this Scavenging Ooze large enough so that it can actually just kind of block all of the large ground threats that Ken Yukuhiro can put onto the battlefield.
I mean, if you cast your eyes over Ken Yukihiro's list, you're going to see very, very light on interaction of any kind. 4 copies of Lightning Bolt is a great include in Modern, of course, but he doesn't have these ways to deal with bigger threats, as you mentioned. And this is why we're seeing this push towards Delve cards like Tasigur, cost reduction cards like Bedlam Reveler, or just big bad boys like Hollow One, because of Fatal Push, because of Abrupt Decay.
Yeah, you have these threats that kind of dodge those removal spells. And if you look, and also this deck is just a lot more resilient to graveyard hate. Look, Reid Duke played that turn 2 Scavenging Ooze, but Ken Yukuhiro, despite having that Burning Inquiry stripped from his hand, has played a turn 2 Tasigur.
Yeah, he's exiled. He doesn't need the Scavenging Ooze there to exile his graveyard. He's got the Tasigur to do it himself. So all rise for the entrance of the Banana King. Tasigur the Golden Fang has joined the party, and now Duke is having to make some pretty interesting decisions about how he progresses. Maelstrom Pulse is a hard answer to Tasigur, and it looks like it's just about the only play he can make here, Paul.
Yeah. I imagine he's likely going to go for it here. Not really a whole lot of other options here. He's got the Fatal Push and Abrupt Decay, but as we talked about before, Tasigur dodges both of those removal effects, some of the more commonly played removal spells in the format. I think Reid Duke needs to try to end the game as quickly as possible, use that Maelstrom Pulse to get that Tasigur off the board, eat it, grow the Scavenging Ooze, and try to end this game.
Yeah, he's playing a bit loosey-goosey with his life total here as he shocks himself down to 14. And, of course, we're going to see the Skoos get in after the reign of the Banana King comes to an end. Tasigur the Golden Fang, an absolute powerhouse delve creature, 14. Of course. As a 4/5, doesn't hit quite as hard as Gurmag Angler, but that activated ability is great in the long game.
And you know, the fact that it was one cheaper was very relevant there. He was able to find that Tasigur. But here's Goblin Lore.
Goblin Lore off the top. Look
Here
at
we
this.
go.
So spinning the wheel once again, Ken Yukihiro rolls down bones across the table, and we're going to see how fortune favours him. Draw 4, discard 3. We know 2 of them are hollow ones.
Right.
How many hollow ones will he discard, Paul? He's looking to, of course, keep that number as low as possible, but he's got no say over the outcome as we do the big shuffle.
You know, when you play this deck, this is kind of what you signed up for. If you discard a hollow one, you know, that's just part of the game. Let's see what happens.
So the D12 out of the outer side. Oh, Duke, come on, mate. Don't do it to us.
All right, here we go.
2.
That's 1.
Card number 2.
1, 8. Yep.
Okay, 1 through 8 here. We can't see the numbers.
Can't see the numbers. I mean, it's
okay, yeah, he rolled an 8.
Okay, an 8 here.
1 through
1 to 7.
3.
And card number 3.
All right, here we go. What's been discarded?
Oh!
There's one of the hollow ones, but that means he's going to play at least one hollow one this turn. What else does he have?
If he has another one, then he can, of course, slam that one into play as well. Not the best Goblin Lore. I mean, it is obviously undisputed, the best card in Magic the Gathering, but right now, only slamming into play 1 4/4 for Yukihiro right now. Follow-up play as well. Bolt
but he found a lightning bolt. Oh, that was so big. Reid was looking so forward to being able to untap there, because if he found another green source, he could have made that Scavenging. He was a 5/5 and been able to actually block the hollow one. That is huge, the fact that Ken Yukihiro was able to find that lightning bolt. As we saw earlier, Reid Duke was looking at Abrupt Decay and Fatal Push, but he finds a Tarmogoyf off the top.
Tarmogoyf is going to completely change the way that this pans out, because already the Tarmogoyf is absolutely enormous.
Hollow one, also an artifact.
Yes.
It grows that Tarmogoyf. And this is huge. This is what Reid Duke told me was his main way to actually try to win. Get a Tarmogoyf on the board because it blocks everything.
So 5/6 Tarmogoyf right now at the very minimum. We've got creature, instant, sorcery, land, and artifact all in the bin so far. Another Goblin Lore. Yukihiro's going to have to go big or go home once again.
Oh, this is always exciting. What can it be? Here we go. 7 cards. Ken Yukihiro going to discard 3 here.
Number 3, the first to fall to the Goblin Grandma.
Oh.
D6
all right,
now.
2.
Down the old short sword damage.
And 2. All right, here we go.
2.
Oh, and
Flamewake Phoenix in the bin. That's a good start.
That is very good for Ken Yukihiro, as he can pay. As he has a 4-power creature on the battlefield, he can pay mana.
Okay, so Gurmag Angler in hand. That can also hit the battlefield, but no hollow ones being cheated into play.
And he's got a ton of cards in his graveyard, so he can actually delve out a Gurmag Angler. He can play a land.
He can also shrink the Tarmogoyf with this delve as well.
He can. The most important thing, of course, is getting that hollow one out of the graveyard, because it is the only artifact. Here we go.
So,
10.
Down to 10, Yukihiro, after shocking himself. Are we going to see another Goblin Lore?
Oh, so what Ken can do here, I don't know if he can get that hollow one. If he can turn the Tarmogoyf into a 3/4, he can actually attack with a hollow one. So if you look at Reid Duke's graveyard, he's got sorcery, land, creature, meaning that if Ken Yukihiro can only just leave sorceries in his graveyard, he can turn a Tarmogoyf into a 3/4 and attack with both the hollow one and the Flamewake Phoenix.
And he's going to be able to do exactly that, as we see Lightning Bolt exiled in addition to the hollow one, taking out artifact and instant. That Tarmogoyf has... Geez, I mean, he's been hitting the gym, he's been cutting hard, Paul, and he's down to now a 3/4. And all of a sudden, Yukihiro has the dominance on the battlefield after Reid Duke, an enormously stabilizing play for him, that Tarmogoyf, you would think.
Right, but keep in mind, remember, Reid Duke does have Abrupt Decay and or Fatal Push. That will put an instant into the graveyard. Will Ken Yukihiro attack with the hollow one? This is actually going to be good for Reid Duke. Reid Duke has a removal spell that he can use to get the Flamewake Phoenix, block the hollow one, and the Tarmogoyf will grow to a 4/5.
So check this out. Duke goes fetching with the Marsh Flats. He's going to find another land here, and then in hand, as you can see, he does indeed have both Fatal Push and Abrupt Decay. He can pick his poison, get rid of that Flamewake Phoenix, and this game is swinging all over the place like a playground.
Yeah, and I imagine Reid Duke's going to go for the Fatal Push here. Maybe choose to save the Abrupt Decay for something else, but this is really, really big. Reid Duke still in a situation where he can't really attack with the Tarmogoyf, but he's bought himself some time here. He still needs to find a way, though, to get that Flamewake Phoenix off the board.
So, Fatal Push on the Flamewake Phoenix is going to grow the Tarmogoyf with an instant, and then right back up to a 5-6. One mulligan. Reid Duke masterfully navigating these very choppy waters. And
Reid Duke just needs more creatures. He needs to find more Tarmogoyfs and more Scavenging Oozes.
So, off the top, Lingering Souls, a very nice one.
Oh, and Ken Yukuhiro is at 10 life. The Reid Duke can actually look to race here. Attack with Tarmogoyf. Attack through that Gurmag Angler as is currently sitting at 5-6. And then he can play Lingering Souls to actually chump block. And he might be able to win this race because this is a 2-turn clock.
So even bringing back that Flamewake Phoenix doesn't guarantee damage through Lingering Souls. And this is exactly what this card does. It grinds, it blocks, it looks to get ahead in the mid to late game. And right now, Yukihiro...
But guess what Ken Yukihiro has?
Goblin Lore!
Another Goblin Lore.
So, 4 cards off the top, discarding 3. And this is a position where actually anything can happen.
Absolutely.
Bloodgust's in hand for Yukihiro. They're not going to have haste with Duke at 13. But what is Yukihiro going to discard here? 6 cards, only 3 are going to remain. Number 2. Number 3. And... Wow. Number 2 again. So 3 cards in the bin here for Yukihiro.
Okay. Mostly irrelevant cards. A Faithless Looting. A Flameblade Adept.
And looks like a
Bloodstained Mire.
Bloodstained Mire hiding out there as well here.
So what are the... Oh, one of the cards is still a Blood Guess.
Oh no!
The cards that actually mattered are still stuck in his hand here.
Oh, the big whiskey here for Yukihiro. He can, of course, still cast the Flameblade, the Flamewake Phoenix, I should say.
Yeah.
But that Bloodcast is not doing a whole lot on this battlefield.
This is sometimes the cost of playing this deck, of course. Sometimes you're discarding cards at random. Sometimes you will have your graveyard cards stranded in your hand. He does have Faithless Looting in his graveyard, but if he chooses to flash it back here, he will not have the mana to actually put the Flamewake Phoenixes onto the battlefield attacking.
And this Tarmogoyf is, of course, right now a lethal attacker here for Yukihiro. He's got some pretty difficult territory to navigate past here.
Yeah.
And this is what Duke said. He had a game plan, Paul, and he's done everything he can to enact it. He said a 5-6 Tarmogoyf was the key to winning this matchup in game number 1 and game number 2 before the sideboards, and he's done exactly what he said he was going to do.
And not only that, I mean, just drawing the Lingering Souls was huge too, because that allowed Reid to actually be able to put a clock.
So...
onto Ken Yukihiro. What does he find?
Draw 2, discard 2, and straight into the concession.
Wow.
Reid Duke equalizes 1-1. Paul, you mentioned that Reid didn't like the matchup too much, but he has done very well to make sure that things are more or less equal as we head towards the sideboard. What does this picture look like after the players have hit their boards?
Well, once you get to the sideboard, I would have normally guessed that Reid would be favored here, right? Because that's typically what mid-range decks do. After sideboard, you have these highly specific cards that you can bring in for certain matchups. But Reid was saying, actually, I think it might actually be harder for me for this matchup. The reason being is game 1, Ken Yukuhiro does not have an answer to a large Tarmogoyf or a large Scavenging Ooze. But once we go into the sideboard, we have cards like Big Game Hunter, Fatal Push, both cards that can get those giant green monsters off the battlefield.
And unsurprisingly, on our back
is this still game 1?
Trying to do the old jazz program late night radio announcer voice here, but I tell you what, it's not really going to be too convincing. Triple Tarmogoyf, Death Shadow, Grim Flayer. Whole lot of nothing going on here for Jean-Emmanuel Depraz. Luis Salvatto slowly rips through his library. Now, what is going on here? I mean, Depraz, what are his percentage points to? Is he just going to play it out to the bitter end?
Currently, I think he's now on effectively 0% or virtually 0% here. At this point, Luis Salvatto is just trying to end the game. He's got the full lock. He's got Witchbane Orb. There's no hand disruption, multiple ensnaring bridges, multiple lanterns, a bunch of mill rocks and Codex Shredder and Pixis. At this point, he's just trying to turbo mill out Jean-Emmanuel Depraz.
And you can see there that Salvato exiled his Pixis, exiled a Pirate Spellbomb with his Pixis of Pandemonium there.
Yeah, but keep in mind, we're talking about the top 8 of the PT. Don't give up until it's actually over. That's what Jan's going for right now. And but this is all but over here.
War of Invention for the 4th Codex Shredder, the full 4. And this is a little bit like Biomancer in the fact, Master Biomancer, you get 4 on the battlefield and you've more or less won the game here.
Right. Oh, and then he found the second Pixis as well. So this is again all but over. We're just gonna see Jan get milled out here.
Attacks with the Codex Shredders there. Get you for 4.
Right. And also keep in mind that Pithing Needle is on a Street Wraith, so it's merely just a 5-mana 3/4 Swamp Walker.
Which doesn't do a whole lot on this battlefield, it has to be said.
He's like, I'm just gonna mill just flood the board here.
Playing it out.
Man, Jan's board would be really good against Ken Yukuhiro's deck.
Mill you for 4. Another Street Wraith on top here. I love the way Salvatto was like attacking with his mill rocks. It looks super sweet here.
No, they're attacking for 1 card from the library.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Getting in for 6 a turn. It's just the Despres.
It's a lot harder, though, right? Your opponent basically starts at 53 life, basically.
Yeah.
You know, but still getting it done.
It's Magic the Gathering on hard mode here.
Right.
As we see now. Ancient Stirrings. Chucking out an ensnaring bridge here, like it ain't no thing.
Might as well.
Number 3.
Just continue playing. Here we go.
And see what's up
there's
here.
There's a Graph Digger's Cage.
I mean, this is the lock. We are right now seeing...
This is the hard lock, and there's no cards left, and here we go. That's it. And he has been decked.
That is exactly how Land Controller seeks to win the games. A masterclass there from Luis Salvatto showing us what it looks like once you're under the lock. And also, Jean-Emmanuel Depraz, he's playing to his outs. There weren't many of them. He really only had a skerrick of hope there. You wanted the 6th card running Abrupt Decay or whatever it was. But any way you slice it there, it looked like Depraz was down for the count. But we got to see it. This isn't something we often see, Paul, is actually a Lantern player completely milling them out. Usually the concession comes first. In untimed quarterfinals, however, things are a little bit different. Yeah,
well, once you're in the untimed, even if you're a 0.1% chance to win. Let's say you're playing against a burn deck. Hey, you know what? There's a small chance, nearly impossible, but what if I have 10 burn spells in a row in the top of my library? It's nearly impossible, but might as well play it out to the bitter end. And that's what you're going to see when you see, a Lantern play against most decks. When you're talking about the Swiss rounds, though, it's in your best interest to try to finish the match. And if you know you're so unlikely to win, it's better to concede and just try to get your opponent after sideboarded games.
That's right, and we've seen that happen throughout the tournament here. The Lantern players going reasonably well across the tournament. Rich Hagen, of course, was keeping us all abreast of it on Twitter.
The Lantern 9.
The Lantern 9 as they began, no, they did pretty well. All but 3 of them finished with positive finishes and constructed positive results. And I mean, the deck has put up the numbers. I don't really know what game it's playing. It's as we said yesterday, it's not quite Magic the Gathering. It's
well, I mean, it's just considered a prison deck,
it's
right?
Close to it.
You're just basically just trying to lock your opponent out. I think one of the most important cards in the deck is, of course, the Ensnaring Bridge. Very, very strong in this current metagame where there's a lot of linear aggressive strategies like the Humans decks. You have your Affinity decks, and then just prevent your opponent from drawing relevant threats to get your Ensnaring Bridge off the battlefield with the combination of Lantern of Insight and Codex Shredder or Pyxis of Pandemonium.
Well, bad news here for fans of Mr. Magic. Reid Duke, the second-ranked player in the world and member of Ultimate Guard Pro Team here, has gone down to 6. Looks like Yukihiro's happy with the 7 that he found off the top of his library, of course. This deck is pretty all over the place, Paul, when it comes to its opening hands. And I can see here that Yukihiro does have land into Burning Inquiry, does have the Hollow One in hand, so we could have another blazing fast start here for the Team Musashi member here.
Yeah, and Reid Duke, again, talking about the keys to the matchup, oftentimes you don't really want to mulligan that much because of the existence of Ken Yukihiro having cards like Burning Inquiry, so you just want it, but at the same time, you just want to make sure you have one of those large green creatures in your hand. Cards like Grim Flayer or Tarmogoyf. Actually, he's not playing Grim Flayer, that's on the list. But cards like Tarmogoyf or Scavenging Ooze, you just want to make sure you have one of those in your hand so you have a chance of playing it on turn 2. So if you don't have that, I can see mulliganing. Reid Duke also has some, high-impact cards out of the sideboard. He has additional copies of Nil Spellbomb, Graph Digger's Cage, and 2 copies of Damnation as well.
All these cards could be very useful here for Duke as he examines his 6, and let's have a look and see what they're looking like. Reasonable mix of lands and spells. A little bit heavy on lands here. He's going to hope that Dark Confidence is going to bring him back to card parity or even card advantage here.
Yeah, I think Reid would be a little happier about this hand if he was on the play, but it's pretty mediocre in the draw. It's a little bit slow. The Inquisition, it's unclear if that's even going to be good enough, given that there's Faithless Looting and Burning Inquiry on turn 1. But Reid can't really go down to 5. He's got lands and spells and a scry.
The other thing that we may see here, and this is the ultimate rub-in here for Yukihiro, the possibility that he plays a Burning Inquiry, Reid Duke draws 3 cards as well, discards these 3 cards, and ends up with 6 lands in hand.
Like that's always a possibility.
That's actually possible.
I mean, of course, there's a lot of variance when it comes to this card because, of course, you're discarding cards at random. So you could be helping out your opponent, or you could be screwing your opponent. We'll see. It's possible Reid Duke draws 3 Tarmogoyfs here and keeps all of them.
What is this guy doing, by the way? This is the least appropriate position to start looking through a room full of scrolls. He's on fire. He's going to burn the whole place down. It's terrible. What sort of occupational health and safety is going on here? In any case, both players drawing 3, going to discard 3 as well. And, of course, this is all happening at random.
1 through 8.
Here we go. Here we go. Number 5.
1 through 7.
Number 12. Nope. No, a bit optimistic there, Reid. Number 5. And
1 through 6. D6.
Number
And
2 as well. So
all
we'll
right.
see if
how many Ken just picks, I think. Oh, no. Or is he going to use the die? Okay.
He's going to use the die as well. But we'll see exactly how many hollow ones Yukihiro has in hand. And Paul, you were saying before, when you're playing this deck, you can't get tilted. You can't be unhappy when you discard the hollow ones.
Just don't be sad because, you know, it's expected. Oh, and Reid discards 3 lands.
3 lands hit the bin here for Reid Duke.
All right, what was this card? There's
one
a hollow one.
2 hollow ones again on turn number 2.
Oh, my God.
It's hollow 1 and hollow 2 on turn number 1.
Are you kidding me?
Ken Yukihiro, the luckiest man alive. And Reid Duke
oh my goodness,
has to read him and weep here as we examine what's going on in his hand.
And that's the thing. I saw Reid Duke going through many mulligan drills with both Huey Jensen and Shahar Shenwahar, but afterwards he said, you know, at the end of the day, my hand doesn't really matter because you can always just go turn 1 Burning Inquiry. Oh my God. And that's a turn 2 Gurmag Angler as well.
So the hollow 2 here is going to be followed up by the Gurmag Angler on turn number 2. And this is an absolute pasting here for Reid Duke. Once again being hit for a huge chunk, down to 10 on turn number 2.
And here's the thing. Reid Duke is at 10, and Ken Yukihiro could just play a Gurmag Angler here. Reid Duke needs to actually have a basic land and a Tarmogoyf to actually survive, because if he plays a fetch land, he's going to go to 9, and he's going to be looking at
2 lethal attackers.
Yeah, basically.
That's just how it goes here, as we see Yukihiro's going to, of course,
Ken just needs to make sure
pick those cards from the graveyard.
He just needs to make sure that Tarmogoyf won't be big. And currently, Tarmogoyf would only be a 2/3. I don't see Reid actually being able to come back from this.
I don't see what Reid Duke can do.
Insane.
This is ridiculous. And Ken Yukihiro has picked this deck knowing that all of his threats line up incredibly well against the point removal played in Modern right now.
Wow.
All of these cards.
Turn 1, 2 hollow ones, games 1 and 3.
Yeah, easy. Easy.
Easy.
Easy. This game is very, very easy for Ken Yukihiro here because he knows that all of these cards, they're bolt-proof, they're push-proof, they're abrupt decay-proof, and this is why he has run the tables. Obviously, a bit of good fortune when it comes to drawing and discarding at random, but Reid Duke has to pack him up.
Oh, my goodness.
In
Turn
game
2 kill.
number 3.
Effectively.
Ken Yukihiro has just absolutely crushed him here with, again, a turn 1 Burning Inquiry resulting in 2 hollow ones. The hollow 2.
The hollow 2. Is he gonna be able to pull off the hollow 3 next turn?
Can he pull off the hollow 3?
I mean, you can have the hollow 4. That is the dream.
That's the dream.
Right? The actual dream.
The actual dream, the Burning Inquiry into the hollow 4. Doesn't happen very often, ladies and gentlemen. Could happen here in game number 4 of our first quarterfinal. Ken Yukihiro and Reid Duke. Yukihiro 1 game win away, of course, from finding himself in the semi-finals. I know many people around the world pulling hard for him, but of course, Reid Duke has his fans as well. It's good to see green-black rock-style decks making it all the way to the top 8. Doesn't look like they're dead just yet. Dark Confident, Tarmogoyf and friends, still very, very powerful cards. On our back table, however, Luis Salvatto on Lantern Control and Jean-Emmanuel Depraz playing, well, 4-color Traverse Death Shadow, however you want to call it here.
I think it's 5 colors, actually.
5 color, is it really?
Yeah, he's got white cards in his sideboard, too, I believe.
Oh, that's right, coming in on a Godless Shrine. I can see it here now.
But it plays very much like kind of the other green-black mid-range decks. He's got a bunch of black and green cards, splashing blue for Stubborn Denial and 1 Snapcaster Mage, and then also splashing red for Temur Battle Rage. That's his main deck configuration.
This Death Shadow doing its best impersonation.
Is this an Ensnaring Bridge?
Of an Ixalan here.
What is going on here?
4-mana War of Invention for 1.
Oh, okay, so he's War of Inventioning for 1 for a Lantern here.
So a slower start here for Salvato. It looks like Depraz has been able to keep himself ahead here, already committing to the board. He'll be looking to wreck his own life total in order to make sure this...
Does Jean-Emmanuel have a Stubborn Denial here, and he's thinking about it? Because he might want to save that Stubborn Denial for a potential Ensnaring Bridge. So if he does, this is a pretty big turn. And as you can see, if you look at Luis Salvato's graveyard, there's already an Ensnaring Bridge there. And that tells me that Jean-Emmanuel had a very discard-heavy hand.
And Depraz has now leveraged this Stubborn Denial, taking care of that War of Invention, looking to just do as much damage as he can as quickly as possible. And a Liliana is going to turn up the heat as well, discarding a Fatal Push. Yep, sure, happy with that.
Right, and the thing is, Liliana, you know, Luis Salvato doesn't really have a board presence here. Rather, he doesn't have any cards in hand. Oh, but he finds an Ensnaring Bridge. But the important thing to note here is that Luis Salvato still needs to find an answer for that Liliana because Liliana's ultimate is still very, very devastating in the matchup. So what Luis Salvato needs to find here is either Pithing Needle, which he's looking at right now, or or Word of Invention to be able to find that Pithing Needle. And, you know, I want to talk about this a little bit more. The addition of that Word of Invention into this deck has made this deck so much stronger.
Yeah.
You can play all these very, very high impact silver bullets in your main deck.
Yeah.
Cards like Grafdigger's Cage and Pithing Needle.
Yeah, Witchbane Orb as well, another consideration here because it does more or less switch off Liliana's bottom two abilities. I mean, I don't think Luis Salvato's too worried about the Edict effect that Liliana can bring to bear, but certainly the Hexproof is very nice against the ultimate of Liliana, which does target.
Wow, and look at this. Luis Salvato
taking the Pithing Needle here.
Going with the Pithing Needle.
So obviously he feels like he's in a position to be able to deal with this Death Shadow in due course here, Paul. Because otherwise he would have taken the Ensnaring Bridge, Thoughtseize,
okay, so
just
this
to
tells
shock
me,
himself.
Yeah, the Death Shadow is not very big. And he was doing this, again, to deal 2 additional points of damage with that Death Shadow.
Another
here we go.
Stirrings off the top. Salvato is running hot here.
And I think Salvato was basically... and he finds the Ensnaring Bridge.
Ensnaring Bridge is huge. It's huge here because this is going to lock down that Death Shadow. So Luis Salvato, he found the pieces in... I mean, to be fair, he's just looked through the top 10 cards of his library.
Right. And now he's also got that Inventor Spare. He can use that Inventor Spare if he finds a land to kind of look for that Lantern of Insight as well. So Luis slowly beginning to lock things up. Jean-Emmanuel only has a couple of turns here, I believe, to find that Abrupt Decay for the Ensnaring Bridge.
I think he found another Thoughtseize off the top here. Codex Shredder in the blind.
Ooh, and getting Traverse is nice.
Traverse is a nice one for sure.
Because
here.
Jean can Traverse for a Snapcaster Mage.
So off the top, Luis Salvato
Did he gain
finds
a life?
land.
Did he gain a life?
I don't think he gained a
I
life.
don't think he did. Yeah.
Inventor's Fair is a nice way to pad that life total, but you do have to remember the trigger. And we saw Salvato yesterday feeling the pressure of the feature match area during his win and in. A couple of unfortunate judge calls, but ultimately going his way, and he's found his way to his first Pro Tour top 8 here, and he's done exceptionally well to do so. Might not be his first, I'm sorry.
I believe this is his second top 8.
Might be his second, yeah.
Yes. But yeah, Luis looking pretty good here now that he's got that Inventor Spare on the battlefield, and this time he remembers to gain the life.
Gain that life.
So what does he find?
Got to gain that life. 1 mana. Another
Ancient Stirrings. That's the thing. There's just so much more redundancy with this deck. Before we were talking about how great Ancient Stirrings is in the Lantern deck, and he finds a Lantern.
So he's just got all the
locking
pieces
it up.
here.
He's got all of the pieces now. He just needs to fade a couple of draws with that Mishra's Bauble now that he has perfect information.
And it looks like Depraz is in a rough position here as we see how he's going to navigate this next little bit here. Traverse the Ulvenwald on the top, but Salvato now with a fair bit of control over the draw step of Depraz. We're going to check in later with this match. It's going to go on for quite some time, you would imagine, as is always the case with Lantern control. Let's get back to Ken Yukihiro versus Reid Duke. Ken Yukihiro, of course, on this black-red hollow one, the latest, hottest freshness in the modern format, and it is in a position now 1 game away, Paul, from the semi-finals.
Yeah, just a couple of explosive starts, but so far no player has, every player has won on the play. Reid Duke now his chance to try to get this game back and then hopefully break serve in the 5th game here.
Now once again we do have the 1 land special from Yukihiro. He has kept Mountain, Burning Inquiry, and basically nothing else.
And this is big. Reid Duke has Duress. A sideboard Duress that he's going to play this turn, and if he gets that Burning Inquiry, Ken Yukihiro has a really weak hand. He has nothing.
Yeah, absolutely stone cold nothing. That Lightning Bolt is a nice utility piece of interaction there, but right now Duress is going to do a real number on Ken Yukihiro.
Excellent choice of Duress art as well.
Oh yeah, he's gone all the way back, all the way back there. And you can see in Yukihiro's hand, he is looking to hunt bigger game and get it done with Big Game Hunter. But right now, the old 1-lander, ugh.
Yeah, Ken Yukihiro now has, he still has some time. Oh no, another Big Game Hunter. But he really needs to find either a copy of Burning Inquiry or Faithless Looting to be able to just, try to find more lands and unload his hand here if he can.
So let's see what's going on here for Duke as he draws a Nihil Spellbomb. We've got a Grim Flayer. We've got a Lingering Souls as well. So he's certainly set up to do some damage here.
And Reid opting to go with the Spellbomb here instead of just trying to put pressure on with the Grim Flayer.
So back to Duke now. Liliana, the last hope off the top.
And it looks like Reid Duke drew a Collective Brutality, but given that he's already seen Ken Yukihiro's hand, saw that there were really no good spells. Oh, he knows about the Lightning Bolt. That's the reason why he didn't play the Grim Flayer. That makes sense.
Yeah, he saw the bolt, of course, thanks to that Duress. So he's not wanting to commit to the board early. But I think Duke's in a great spot here. He's in a really, really good spot to eke out more value with cards like Liliana and what have you.
Oh, is that a Burning Inquiry?
Burning Inquiry off the top. Okay. This is going to break this open. Get 1, 2, and 3 cards for both players off the top. This is Yukihiro's basically final chance to get himself back into this game, Paul.
Yeah, he needs to find some hollow ones and put them onto the battlefield. He can't really rely too heavily on cards going into his graveyard because Reid Duke does have that Nihil Spellbomb on the battlefield.
Yeah, so things like the Flamewake Phoenix coming back are not going to have the impact that he wants here. So let's have a look and see how things go as 3 cards get discarded from Yukihiro's hand. Second card and card number 3. Now, Yukihiro will be hoping that he's drawn 3 hollow ones off the top and that they're all in his hand.
He wants hollow ones, but not only that, he really wants to find a black source that's not a fetch land. If he finds a black source that's not a fetch land and he has a delve creature in his hand, he can actually play a giant delve creature before Reid actually has the ability to use the Nihil Spellbomb.
Hollow one gets discarded.
And there's a hollow one in the graveyard. Does he find another one?
Has he found a second 4/4?
Does he have a delver?
Oh my goodness me, it doesn't look like he's got
he's got a Gurmag Angler.
Gurmag Angler.
And he found a non-fetch land here. So Reid Duke does not have the opportunity to respond. Ken can immediately play Blood Crypt. And does he have enough cards in his graveyard? He doesn't. He's one short.
One short here.
He's one short.
So Duke will be in a position to gain some advantage from this Nihil Spellbomb, because if he blows it up at some point before Yukihiro can put another card in his graveyard and hold priority, it means that the Gurmag Angler will not be making an appearance just yet. That Burning Inquiry did not go the way that Yukihiro was looking for it to.
Yeah, and now I think, given that Ken has played a Burning Inquiry, he might, he still has that Collective Brutality in hand. He might want to use it this turn to look at Ken's hand and make sure he doesn't have a card like Goblin Lore to additionally cast on the following turn. But I think it is very likely that he's going to use that Spellbomb to remove Ken Yukihiro's graveyard, as Ken Yukihiro is in position to play out a big delve creature. But if you want to do that, I think I would look to run out the Collective Brutality, because if Ken Yukihiro has a spell, that's an additional card to put into Ken Yukihiro's graveyard before you activate the Nihil Spellbomb.
So snagging extra cards, of course, with that Spellbomb is going to be huge for Duke. Looks like he's reaching for 2 mana here. Are we going to see the Brutality come down?
Yeah, the alternative here is also minusing the Liliana, the Last Hope, and getting back that Grimflayer to put some pressure on Ken Yukihiro. But I think Reid is really curious, really wants to know what Ken is working with in his hand.
So here we see the Lightning Bolt hit the bin, in addition to 2 big game hunters, a Flamewake Phoenix, a Bloodghast, and that Gurmag Angler we've talked about here. So careful, conservative, and very canny play here from Reid Duke as he looks to gain every tiny incremental advantage he can do. And this is the name of the game with green-black decks.
So now Reid Duke can also decide to use the Spellbomb and not draw a card so that he can also play the Grimflayer, but it looks like he's going to go for the value play here instead and just spend the black mana to draw a card.
So Liliana up to 5 now, and she ultimates very, very quickly here, and Yukihiro is not looking to be in a good position whatsoever.
He really needs an enabler.
No cards in his hand are able to be cast right now. His graveyard is in the history books, and what is happening here is we are seeing Duke slowly but surely pull further and further ahead. A great start for Duke has been backed up by some pretty stinky draws from Ken Yukihiro. And this is what happens. You live by the sword, you die by the sword. Yukihiro has had some great RNG so far, and now he's paying the price.
Yeah, being on the draw is really bad against a deck with all this turn 1 hand disruption. Ken Yukihiro had the potential for an excellent start turn 1, but Reid was able to disrupt that plan on both games 2 and 4. Really interesting if we go to game 5. What's going to happen? It's got to swing back into Ken's favor.
Yeah, and Duke is he's going to be battling very hard to get there, of course, and he looks to be in a great position to be doing exactly that here.
Yeah, and I think at this point, Reid is potentially just looking to get the Liliana to Emblem here. He does have a Lingering Soul, so he can just play that and flash it back as well if he wants. He needs to use white mana to play it.
So he has mistapped his lands just slightly there. It's not going to matter too much, as I imagine we're going to see Lingering Soul flash back straight away.
Yeah, and it looks like he's going to try to get to Liliana Emblem, which will allow him to make a giant army of zombies every turn.
There's not going to be too much that Yukihiro is going to be able to do about this. Faithless Looting off the top. That's a start. Burning Inquiry and Hollow One the draw.
Okay, and he can play the Hollow One for 1 mana because he's discarding 2 cards this turn. As you know, Hollow One says that whenever you discard a card, it costs 2 less, and it's a 5 mana 4/4. So after playing the Faithless Looting, it would cost 1 mana.
And that isn't going to be able to pressure the Liliana too well. You'd think, you know, a 1-mana 4/4 would be great against opposing Planeswalkers, but this is the power of Lingering
He needs
Souls.
more here. He needs to play this Burning Inquiry.
And just hope for the best.
And hope for the best, because he's a little too far behind.
Ken Yukihiro down on his knees, praying to RN Jesus. He's going to see what happens here after this, well, what is it, the second Burning Inquiry we've seen so far. The first one didn't go in his favour. We'll see if the second one does any better for him here, Paul. What does he need? He needs what, hollow ones?
He needs a bunch of hollow ones. A land would also be reasonable, which would allow him to put a Flamewake Phoenix onto the battlefield. Maybe a land into a large Delve creature as well.
1 card, 2 cards,
and 3
and
cards.
now the 3rd card as well.
All right, and now Ken's got to do the same for Reid Duke's hand. Reid is only looking at 5 cards in hand here. So no, 6 doesn't work.
Welcome to Dice Rolling in the Pro Tour feature match area, ladies and gentlemen.
victory.
We don't see it very often, but it's very, very exciting indeed when we do.
Lingering Souls,
Lingering one
Souls.
of them. Oh, no.
And a spell, but he did manage to nab a spell bomb here as well.
Okay, hollow one's going to come down for free, of course. And it looks like we do have... Oh, look at this. Another
Now,
way.
does he want a Faithless Looting or does he want a Flamewake Phoenix? Okay, so he's Flamewake Phoenix, trying to put pressure on the Liliana here. I think Reid might be interested in trying to get this emblem off. If he does, then he can choose to chump block here with the Lingering Souls. Then he can use the Liliana, the Last Hope, take it up to make sure that this Flamewake Phoenix will no longer be able to deal any damage.
On the back table, Salvato did indeed manage to get up in game number 2 there, Paul. We did see him assemble the lock very early after a string of fortunate draws with Ancient Stirrings, and he managed to take it home for Team Rock and Roll in game number 2. These players hitting their sideboard. We're going to check in with them later, of course. We expect that one to go on a little longer than the game, or the match, I should say, on your table here. So we'll see how things go for those 2 players. But right now, Reid Duke looking to turn the screws and get himself to that 5th game decider here, Paul.
So he had the option there of single blocking and then using Liliana, the Last Hope, to kind of shrink the Flamewake Phoenix, but it looks like Reid Duke wanted to basically tax Ken Yukuhiro's mana and opted for the double block there, just so that Ken does have to spend you know, a red mana to get it back onto the battlefield.
He's going to type his mana a little bit here as we see Duke go fetching once again. He's got plenty of lands. It just remains to be seen what he can do with them. Scavenging Ooze and Dark Confidant in hand. The Scavenging Ooze is a great way to control graveyards, of course, and gaining a bit of incidental life. I think Duke's a fair way ahead here.
Oh, and of course, this makes a lot of sense. That double block makes even more sense because Ken Yukuhiro has a hollow one in play. The only way you actually can get Flamewake Phoenix back onto the battlefield is with the condition that you have a 4-power creature on the battlefield. So Liliana, the Last Hope, can be used to shrink down the hollow one, making it a 2-power creature, which would then mean that Ken Yukuhiro cannot actually recur those Flamewake Phoenixes from the graveyard.
So Duke, a step ahead of us all here as we saw the double block on the Phoenix, and it's not going to come back, and Scavenging is going to lock it up in any case here. So the Faithless Looting hitting the bin, and we see Duke just isn't worried about this Phoenix here. He just wants to make sure Yukihiro can't get value, can't find a way back into it. Because, of course, I mean, we say Yukihiro's down for the count. 1 Goblin Lore off the top could change that completely.
Yeah, could be anything. And there is a Faithless Looting that Ken Yukihiro has in hand. So I imagine he's going to lead off with that and then take it from there.
So, Faithless Looting for Ken Yukihiro, who is desperately swimming here to try to keep himself in this game. But slowly those floodwaters are rising, and the Japanese player may be reaching for his sideboard sooner than he would have liked. He wanted to lock this one up all from the very
he shrunk. He shrunk. You can't. Right.
Yep. Duke saw the interaction from a mile away, Paul, just a few moments before you did.
Does not work.
And now Yukihiro in a very, very tough spot. All Duke needs to do, really, put the finishing touches on this match. You'd think a Liliana emblem would be enough. That thing gets out of control very, very quickly.
So are we now, I believe we're probably in the second main phase now, given that he was in his combat phase and could not return the Flamewake Phoenixes.
So draw 2, discard 2.
Okay, so not the worst. He does have a Gurmag Angler that he can put onto the battlefield. And he could potentially discard, but yeah, it's all but over.
Writings on the wall here for Ken Yukihiro. Scoops him up, goes to game number 5 against Reid Duke. I know many people around the world will be very, very happy to see him dig in so deep and get it done in game number 4, but he's got a tough uphill battle against him in game number 5. He's on the draw, and we know how explosive Yukihiro's deck is, you know, has the potential to be, Paul. What's he going to do? Does he have to just get lucky with these inquiries and these Goblin Laws, obviously, ultimately not doing what Yukihiro wants?
I mean, that's what he signed up for. That's how this deck functions. You saw how explosive this deck can be in both games 1 and 3, especially when he was on the play. And I think Ken is just looking to replicate that. And you know, Reid had the hand disruption spell, and Ken just was kind of stalled out, and Reid was able to kind of navigate that game perfectly. But I still think I like Ken Yukuhiro's side here, just the fact that he's on the play.
Well, let's have a look at exactly what these players are working with within their sideboards. We've had a brief chat about it, of course, Paul, but we can actually bring up the cards that they're working with. You mentioned before, of course, Big Game Hunter in a great position in this matchup against those huge big green beaters, and Fatal Push also in a position to do some work.
Yeah, I think those are basically the two cards that he really wants to bring in. I mean, he could consider something like a Blood Moon because Reid Duke is playing a 3-color deck, but I think when you're playing against somebody of Reid Duke's caliber, you know that he's going to play around it to the best of his abilities. If he has a fetch land, if he can afford to, he's going to get basics. So I think the thing is, Ken just wants to make sure that he remains as explosive as possible and just bring in the Big Game Hunter and the Fatal Push, and maybe take out something like Lightning Bolt potentially, or maybe Flame Blade Adept. I mean, this is something like that.
This is the thing. The other thing about this Hollow One deck is, as essentially a combo deck, it can't dilute its main game plan too much by overboarding. You know, we see this with decks like Affinity, for example. You know, you can't have too many sideboard cards coming in, otherwise you dilute your main game plan. There's only so many spots
you want to be as degenerate as possible.
Yeah, can devote to interaction there. As you say, you want to remain as, degenerate as possible.
That's the name of the game here. I can also see him maybe boarding out something like Collective Brutality, as there's not really a whole lot of great targets. Lightning Bolt can be good, where you put yourself in a situation where you delve a bunch of cards away and then use the Lightning Bolt to kill Tarmogoyf.
Yeah, that is one way to do it, to leverage some value out of that. Otherwise, you know, if you remove a spell, Bolt's fortunes have waxed and waned over the last couple of weeks and months. Let's have a look at what Reid Duke is working with in his board, however. What's jumping out at you here, Paul?
I'm looking at the graveyard card, anti-graveyard cards here. We have both Grafdigger's Cage and Nihil Spellbomb, along with 2 copies of Damnation, where Ken Yukuhiro can get those, nice starts. I don't think Reid's really expecting Ken to play 2x Hollow Ones in turn 1 every game. And for the games that get a little more drawn out, I think having just additional hard removal is nice. So I expect him to bring in the 2 Damnations, the Grafdigger's Cage, the Spellbomb, and as we saw in the last game, probably also the Duress, just to try to get, potential Goblin Lores and other 1-mana cantrip effects.
Yeah, we saw the 1-mana discard spells be really, really at a premium in this matchup, especially when on the play. But I like the Grafdigger's Cage, shutting down Flamewake, Phoenix, Bloodghast, and also Faithless Looting. Of course, it does a lot of work for just one mana. And Nihil Spellbomb. I think you mentioned that Reid is playing these in the main deck as well.
Yeah, he's got 2 in the main deck. I think he just, kind of thinks, well, it cycles, right? At the end of the day, it cycles. It's not the worst, and then it really helps give you some percentage points in the tough matchups, like Ken Yukuhiro's deck, like Dredge. So I think that was kind of a hedge. It makes you a little bit worse against the aggressive strategies, but Reid does have a pretty nice sideboard plan against those decks. Another card that I can see him bringing in is Liliana the Last Hope, as it is a good way to kind of shut off flyers like the Flamewake Phoenix. And as we saw in the last game, he was able to shrink out the Hollow One, which prevented additional copies of Flamewake Phoenix to be put onto the battlefield. The one card that I know that he's going to take out is Liliana the Veil, because Liliana the Veil is only helping Ken Yukuhiro discard those Flamewake Phoenixes, discard and madness out Big Game Hunter, and also discard those Bloodghasts.
Yeah, exactly right. He slaps down the Liliana, and Ken's like, oh, thank you very much. That's very kind of you, my friend. Thanks. In any case, we're going to head back down to the table now, see how things are going with these 2 players. Game number 5, it is the decider. Looks like these players are just about ready to go, putting the finishing touches on their decks. We'll bring you more updates from our back table, but we do expect that one to go a little longer, given that we have Lantern Control facing off there against a 4-color or 5-color, I guess, if you want to be really fancy, Grixis. Oh, sorry, Death Shadow deck. I mean, more of a Jund base than a Grixis one, perhaps, here. Both these players now, Reid Duke, Ken Yukihiro, going to game number 5. You're in the booth with Riley Knight alongside me, Paul Cheon, here at Pro Tour Rivals of Ixalan. Certainly is our pleasure to bring you live, uninterrupted coverage of this weekend's event. It has been a pleasure to have you so far, and we're looking forward to it continuing throughout the weekend. Let's get into it. These players examining their opening hands. I mean, how are they looking here from the outset?
So I don't see a Burning Inquiry out of Ken Yukuhiro's hand, but I do see a Faithless Looting, so I think he's going to keep this. He can lead off with a Faithless Looting, maybe have a slower draw. It does not allow him to play a Hollow One on turn 1, but he can still play a Giant Delve creature on turn 2, potentially, with, finding other copies of Burning Inquiries or Faithless Lootings. And also on turn 3, he can additionally flash back that Faithless Looting for just a little, the ability to dig through his deck a little bit more. And Reid Duke, kind of aggressive in the mulliganing. I think he just really wants to find, either a cheap interactive spell or a large green creature to be able to actually block
So Duke
Ken
now,
Yukuhiro's creatures.
Duke down to 6. Unfortunately for him, he's going to take the second mulligan he's had to take this game, or this match, I should say. And obviously everyone around the world hoping he gets a good 6. We're going to want to see a good game of interactive Magic, but that doesn't always happen when you're slamming Holo 1s and Holo 2s into play on as early as turn number 1. Yukihiro turns the head away and shuts the eyes.
He's already imagining. He's like, all right, what do I want here? Let's see. I'm going to Faithless Looting. I'm going to find a Holo 1. I'm going to find a Street Wraith. I'm going to cycle that Street Wraith, find another Holo 1, and then play 2 Holo 1s in turn 1.
Just drawing it all up. Oh, actually, I don't know. Maybe he's just so confident he's going to win. He's already thinking about his lunch.
Or he's just really jet-lagged.
Yeah,
one of the
it
two.
could be any of these things. Could be any of these things. We're going to find out soon enough here as Duke, as we mentioned, going down to 6 now. An unfortunate start for him because, of course, his back is against the wall. He is on the draw against one of the most unpredictable and explosive decks in the entire format. Black, red, Holo 1, playing cards that I never thought would see the light of day. Goblin Law, Burning Inquiry, all of a sudden, constructed powerhouses.
Yeah. This is a deck that was played by most of the members of Team Musashi, and actually, we had the chance to talk to Shota Yasuoka, and we were like, you know what? How did you come up with this deck?
Yeah, who built the deck?
And then he was just like, Magic Online, 5-0. Then we went to go draft.
Oh, he's an absolute superstar.
Oh, and this is a great 6.
Let's have a look at this hand. Wow, 2 lands and some great highly impact spells here. Nihil Spellbomb, Grafdigger's Cage, and Dark Confidant. The perfect card to get you back in the game after a mulligan as well. We all know Bob Ma hustles and bustles pretty hard drawing you those extra cards, especially after early interaction disruption here.
And Reid here now contemplating whether or not he wants that second copy of Dark Confidant.
Oh, geez.
That is just the name of the game. Greatness at any cost.
Oh, dear. Both of these players may be rolling the bones here because obviously got to have a bit of good luck on your side to get this far.
Nope. All right.
Going to play it a bit safer by the water here. Yukihiro. Now, the thing is, Duke doesn't know that Yukihiro's hand isn't great.
Right, and the thing is, Yukihiro does have a lightning bolt in his hand, so he might have, if Reid had perfect information, he might have wanted to keep that Dark Confidant in hand. But here we go, turn 1 Faithless Looting.
Now, Duke is just getting so ready to draw a 3 and discard 3, as we see Burning Inquiry there is not the card that I think we're going to see played right now. It doesn't appear in Yukihiro's hand. It's, of course, what he would want, but Faithless Looting is going to have to play second fiddle here.
All right, here we go. Faithless Looting, turn 1.
Yukihiro is going to have to find something special, though. His hand is not perfectly set up, although this deck is able to tear through cards very, very quickly indeed.
Oh, and that's Goblin Lore.
Goblin Lore off the top here. That could be a huge play next turn.
So what are we looking at? I think it's the Flamewake Phoenix for sure, and it looks like a land here as well.
Yep, Mountain hitting the bin in addition to that Flamewake Phoenix, and it's back to Reid Duke now. Now, Duke does have many options on turn number 1. He can play a Grafdigger's Cage.
I think Cage is pretty nice here because there's a Faithless Looting in the graveyard along with the Flamewake Phoenix. However, he might also be concerned about a potential turn 2 Gurmag Angler with the help of maybe another fetch land, or so he might actually want to lead out with the Spellbomb here.
Well, he doesn't have any great answers to a Delve creature should it come down. I mean, he's still holding a copy of Fatal Push, which only can target the recursive threats in Flamewake Phoenix and Bloodghast.
Yeah, this is actually really interesting. So Reid Duke knows that Ken Yukihiro mostly has Gurmag Angler in his deck. That's the most likely Delve creature, and if he has a Gurmag Angler, Ken Yukihiro cannot play it unless he plays a fetch land. Meaning he can't just play a Spellbomb and not use it right away and see if Ken Yukihiro plays that fetch land. If he plays a fetch, in response to the fetch, he can actually use the Spellbomb to exile Ken Yukihiro's graveyard.
And the problem would be in any other case, if Yukihiro had enough cards in his graveyard and then played a land, for example, then Duke would never have the opportunity to exile the graveyard before the land was played, unless he did it during his own turn, of course. So, but we are going to see Grafdigger's Cage instead. A fetch land off the top for Ken Yukihiro, however.
Yeah, but since there's a Grafdigger's Cage, I think he might just go for a turn 2 Gurmag Angler here instead.
That's what's going to happen here, I think. He's going to go and search out a shockland from his library here. Ken Yukihiro slamming that Blood Crypt into play. And are we going to see a turn 2 5/5?
Turn 2 5/5. I mean, Reid Duke's been playing some turn 2 6/7s. He's got some Tarmogoyfs on his side. What does he want to do? I would be really tempted here to just run out the Gurmag Angler. Reid Duke does not have a removal spell that he can have at least until turn 3 with those Maelstrom Pulses to get that off the board.
This is the strength of the Holo 1 deck. This is what we've talked about. Modern is overrun with Fatal Push and Lightning Bolt and Abrupt Decay and Gurmag Angler, Hollow One. They just shrug this removal off.
And this is the thing. Reid Duke was contemplating last turn whether or not he wanted to play a Grafdigger's Cage or Spellbomb. If he played the Spellbomb and Ken Yukuhiro plays that fetch land, Ken Yukuhiro cannot play Gurmag Angler that turn.
A really unfortunate turn of events here for Reid Duke. A very difficult turn one decision. Of course, with perfect information, maybe he would have had a better understanding of the way forward. But all the same, there's no knocking the way that he's played it now. As we see Dark Confident come down, Duke is going to have to take a heavy hit here from this Gurmag Angler.
And Ken Yukuhiro has the Lightning Bolt for the Dark Confidant here as well. He might want to fire that off before playing the Goblin Lore.
So, attack with the 5/5 now. And we're going to see Lightning Bolt on the Dark Confident, the Bob Maher Invitational card.
And his hand, he's not really working with a whole lot here, so he might just be interested in playing the Goblin Lore. But it looks like he's actually deciding to keep the cards in his hand because Big Game Hunter is pretty strong here. He can actually wait on the Goblin Lore. If he uses it next turn, and let's say Reid Duke plays something like a 4/5 Tarmogoyf or something of that nature, he can madness out the Big Game Hunter if he uses that Goblin Lore and discards it at random.
This is going to be huge here. This is going to be huge because, of course, the Nihil Spellbomb is a little too little and a little too late after we've seen already this Gurmag Angler come down.
And Ken Yukuhiro deciding to play it kind of slow here and just playing out his creatures. Telling Reid Duke, hey, look, you need to have a removal spell. Reid Duke does have that Fatal Push. Imagine he's probably going to use it on the Adept here.
The Adept is otherwise going to swing in for a huge amount of damage next turn, of course, thanks to the Goblin Lore. And you'd think Duke recognizes the ability for this little 1/2 piece of draft chaff to do a whole lot of damage, so he's not going to tussle with it.
Yeah, one thing that I've actually forgotten a lot is the fact that the Flame-Bladed Adept has Menace. So if Reid Duke finds a big creature, you actually can't even block the Flame-Bladed Adept.
I think probably the only time I heard or read the entire text of that card was during the Limited Resources set review, when it was given, I'm sure, like a D-.
Right.
But right now,
Reid Duke, I don't think he has a big creature, and this Gurmag Angler is just continuing to put so much pressure on Reid. What is Reid Duke working with? Wow, he's got nothing. He just has a Duress.
Nihil Spellbomb to draw a card here. And he finds another land off the top. The top of his library is not treating him kindly here. We're going to see the...
this Gurmag Angler, turn 2 Gurmag Angler might just go all the way.
Oh, what a surprise.
Yeah.
A turn 2 5/5, you say, Paul.
Not only that, Ken Yukuhiro is holding a Big Game Hunter in his hand. That restricts the cards that Reid Duke can actually draw to get out of this. He can't play a large Tarmogoyf.
So, in for 5 now. Reid Duke down to 4. This could be the end of the road here for Reid Duke. He's had an incredible run so far.
This is actually really interesting. Ken Yukuhiro could have decided to actually cycle the Street Wraith to maybe find something like a Flamewake Phoenix. But if Ken Yukuhiro finds a 5th land, he can just hard cast that Street Wraith, which would be a formidable threat, given that there are swamps on the battlefield.
It's an evasive threat, yeah, that's sure.
And here we go. There's the Big Game Hunter. This is the game. Ken Yukuhiro has this. All he has to do is play the Big Game Hunter. Tarmogoyf is got to be at least a 4-power creature here, right?
Tarmogoyf's huge. We've got instant sorcery. We've got an artifact and a land. It's a 5/6 right now.
And so he doesn't need to play the Goblin Lore, I don't think. I think he just needs to play the Big Game Hunter. He should, at this point, he should know Reid Duke's deck list.
Yeah, there's nothing that Duke can have.
He does not play Path to Exile.
Big Game Hunter. Big Game Hunter can come down, slay the Tarmogoyf.
Artifact, instant, creature, sorcery, land.
It's a 5/6. It is well and truly big game. Ken Yukuhiro
This is the biggest game.
His inner Garrick here. He is going to hunt bigger game.
Oh, what he's concerned about is if Reid Duke is holding something like a Fatal Push or an Abrupt Decay, Reid Duke can actually kill his own Tarmogoyf in response. And if you look, Big Game Hunter is not a May. It is a must. So he is a little bit fearful here. If Reid Duke has a 1-mana removal spell, he could get blown out here, but we know that Reid Duke has a land in hand.
But look at that next level stuff from Ken Yukihiro. He is playing around every angle, and this is what you do when you're this far ahead, Paul. You don't take these risks. You play conservatively. You play to your out. Street Wraith cycling away for Yukihiro. He finds a Bloodghast now.
This is rough, though. Does he go for it? Reid Duke is currently sitting at 4 life. Does he go for it?
He has the win on the spot if he chooses to deploy the Big Game Hunter.
So he's going for the Goblin Lore here. He's going for the Goblin Lore. So what he can do here now is if he goes for the Goblin Lore and gets that Bloodghast into the graveyard and doesn't discard the big game hunter at random, he can play a land, get the Bloodghast onto the battlefield. No, that doesn't work either. I'm sorry.
Because the
right, because it's not big enough. It's not big enough.
All right, discarding 3 cards here. Goblin Lore, 1 to 6. Reid Duke, roll them bones. Here we go.
Nope.
Straight off the table. Not the best technique. Number 1.
5.
Number 2. And number 3 here. So the 3 cards remaining in Ken Yukihiro's hand will decide the outcome of this match, you would think.
There was a lightning bolt there, which would have been really nice. Oh,
and that's a hollow one in hand as well. He's got a hollow one in hand. He can play the hollow one in hand. He plays the hollow one. He can play the big game hunter.
And he has a Faithless Looting. He can now Faithless Looting. Now he can play around the removal spell. He plays Faithless Looting. Madness is out the big game hunter. Even if Reid Duke has a removal spell for his own Tarmogoyf,
he can blow up his own hollow one.
That's right.
And that is going to spell the victory here for Ken Yukihiro.
He sees it. He sees it.
He's seen the line. He's covered every angle. This has been masterful stuff for Ken Yukihiro, poised to make a semi-final appearance here at Pro Tour Rivals of Ixalan. Paul Cheon, we have seen an amazing match.
Just playing to his house. Because any player would just see just be like, I play big game hunter, I win the game.
And just go,
but Ken Yukihiro playing it even more conservatively, playing it safer to put himself in a position here.
Oh dear, he's fetched the wrong land. He fetched a swamp.
He sees the win. He's just going to get a Blood Crypt here.
He fetches a swamp with his Arid Mesa. Doesn't quite work like that. Gonna have to go down to 11.
He could also get a mountain. You know, he could have also got, if he's playing more than 1 mountain in his
There was also an option available to him. But he's going to go down to 11 here after having fetched out the correct land. And this is going to be it.
Doesn't Bloodghast come into play too? Or I guess it doesn't matter.
Doesn't even matter.
Yeah, he has a Bloodghast in his graveyard. But
doesn't even need it. Yeah. Don't need it. No way, no how. So now, Faithless Looting, draw 2, discard big game hunter.
And another hollow one.
Easy game. Look at this big game hunter. Target your Tarmogoyf and attack for the win. Reid Duke goes down to Ken Yukihiro in game number 5. Ken Yukihiro with black-red hollow ones. The scourge of the modern tables this weekend, Paul. We have a new contender on the scene.
Yeah, and this is what we were talking about. What is the reason to play something like Black-Red Hollow One over maybe a slightly more explosive deck potentially like Dredge? Well, it's much more resilient against Graveyard Hate. Reid Duke played turn 1 Grafdigger's Cage. You played against you play that against Dredge, game over, right? You play this against Ken Yukihiro, turn 2 Gurmag Angler, just went all the way.
Yeah, that's it. And we saw the utility of Yukihiro's sideboard cards really having a huge impact there in the form of course, we saw Big Game Hunter being ultimately decisive at the end of it, and Reid Duke, unfortunately for him, he has to take his licks. But look at this. This man has made it all the way to his 3rd Pro Tour top 8, well and truly in the conversation for Hall of Fame as soon as that comes up, and it'll be a very well-deserved rest that he gets right now. Congratulations, Reid Duke, on a fantastic run. But Ken Yukihiro right now, you'll be seeing him in the semi-finals before very much longer. But we've got to move to our back table here, Paul. We're going to tone things down a little bit now as we move into Lantern Control versus Traverse Shadow. 4 or 5 color Traverse on the back of course, Death's Shadow being an enormously powerful card. And it looks like Jean-Emmanuel Depraz was able to win Game 3 off the back of Ancient Grudge. Ancient Grudge, one of the key sideboard cards, and Tim Willoughby was down there to watch the entire thing pan out, and he's just told us that Ancient Grudge decisive in that matchup against Lantern Control. The one artifact removal spell that can't be fully removed, of course, by much of the library disruption that is offered by the Lantern Control player. Now, Despres is opening up with a Mishra's Bauble after Luis Salvatto has opened with a Leyline of Sanctity. Now, why is this card, what impact is this card poised to make in this matchup?
He wants to play around Lightning Bolt to the... No. He really wants to play around all the hand disruption spells. Now, Jean-Emmanuel, he is playing kind of just a black-green deck with lots of hand disruption. So Leyline of Sanctity allows him to basically nullify kind of one of Jan's primary ways to disrupt Luis Salvatto, which is cards like Inquisition of Kozilek and Thoughtseize.
Yeah, even Liliana of the Veil. We've talked about this already today, the fact that Leylines have an enormous role to play against things like Liliana of the Veil, even though, of course, the Sacrifice a Creature effect doesn't really apply in this matchup. You mentioned before the Liliana Ultimate can be huge, and it just does absolutely stone cold nothing when your opponent has a Leyline of Sanctity.
Yeah, and if you look, Jan does have an Inquisition of Kozilek stranded in his hand, and now any copy of Inquisition that he draws or other hand disruption spell just basically puts Luis Salvatto up a card.
So, Street Wraith off the top here for Depraz. Looks like Salvato is going to have a look at it as well. Marsh Flats hits the bin. And Depraz only has a very limited amount of time to set himself up here before Salvato edges ever closer to that lock.
Right, but Jan gets a huge addition and an additional weapon for this matchup, and that card is Ancient Grudge.
Yeah.
Now, Luis Salvatto, at least in game 1, right, you don't have to worry about a card like that, and so all he has to do is just make sure that you can just mill all the Abrupt Decays and don't have to worry about anything. But when there's Ancient Grudge in the deck, and it's shown on top of your opponent's library, well, you can't use a Codex Shredder to get at that off the board. He needs to find a card like Pyxis of Pandemonium to exile it indefinitely. And that's why you see Luis Salvatto sideboarding in copies of Welding Jar to additionally protect that Ensnaring Bridge that he's inevitably going to look for here.
And we know that Ancient Grudge was decisive in game number 3 here for Depraz. As soon as he hit the sideboard, he brought this card in, and just as you mentioned, Paul, very high impact card. Death Shadow right now coming into play.
1/1 Death Shadows.
2 1/1s here, look at this. So it only took Depraz one attack to win last game after the Ensnaring Bridges were cleared out of the way with that Ancient Grudge, and we see Ensnaring Bridge right here and right now. Those Death Shadows can get in though, Paul.
Yeah, currently they can get in. They are both 1/1s. Luis Salvatto holding, it looks like 3 cards in hand. So Luis can actually, Jan can actually afford to take 2 additional points of damage here to get in for 4 additional points of damage. Given that Luis has 3 cards in hand, does he have a way to take 2 damage?
Yeah, he can. Oh no, he can take 3 with the Verdant Catacombs.
But if he takes 3, he can't actually attack. With
what he can do is he can play the Verdant Catacombs, attack, and then crack and shock himself at instant speed and get in for 8. Now this may be the line we see here from Depraz, because this is the reason that, for example, a Noble Hierarch can attack into an Ensnaring Bridge.
Does he have Delirium? Doesn't look like it. He has 3 types, right?
So we've got in the bin, we've got a Street Wraith for creature, we've got a couple of lands as well, and a Mishra's Bauble. So that's 3.
Yeah, because what he could also consider doing is it's a little weird, but it would be something along the lines of Inquisitioning yourself, give yourself Delirium, traverse for a Street Wraith. And now he currently has Death Shadows, attack, cycle the Street Wraith to get in for as much damage as possible. Now, at the same time, if he has a powerful sideboard option, like maybe like a Kataki to go after with the Traverse, then he would probably do that instead. But I don't see a Kataki. The White Splash is simply for 3 copies of Lingering Souls in his graveyard.
So Liliana, the last hope. It may indeed be Depraz' last hope here as we see him look to leverage some advantage from this Planeswalker. Looks like he's going to hit Delirium now as Traverse the Ulvenwald hits the bin.
And he had a Street Wraith, right.
So he is going to be able to hit still for a chunk here. Attack for 4. Cycle the Street Wraith before damage?
No, he chose not to.
Well, that just represented free damage there, and if you're going to cycle that Street Wraith, you may as well do it anyway, but it looks like maybe he's keeping that as a way to control his draws.
Right. Luis Salvatto really wants to empty out his hand here if he can, and he can. I believe it looks like he's got a Mishra's Bauble in hand too, so those Death Shadows can no longer attack.
Nope, they've been locked down. Search for Azcanta at the play in addition to the Lantern of Insight and the ball there, Paul. Salvatto has dumped his hand out onto the table on a pretty healthy 15 life. Depraz is now in a position where he needs to pull together some pretty tidy draws here to get himself back in the game.
Right, but currently Luis Salvatto does not have a way to actually manipulate Jean-Emmanuel's draws because he doesn't have a Codex Shredder or a Pyxis of Pandemonium, but he does have the Bauble. You know, he's going to be able to cycle through his deck, and he does have that Search for Azcanta, which allows him to at least control his draws a little bit more, because of course Search for Azcanta, at the beginning of your upkeep, you can look at the top card and choose to put that card into your graveyard.
He's going to have a little bit more of a say over what happens here, and look at this, Depraz is actually shrinking his own Death Shadow here. And what he might be able to do now is attack, double cycle the Street Wraith, do himself a bunch of damage.
He can get in for 7 damage here, actually. He can attack for 0, use the fetch land, get a shock land, take 3, then cycle both of his Street Wraiths, and that would deal 7 damage to Luis Salvatto.
I just feel like he should have packed in some more damage last turn with that double Street Wraith attack here. But in any case, this is the line he's taken. He's going to fetch away for something here. Imagine a shock land.
I think Jan's main hope there was just hoping that Luis couldn't play 3 permanents in one turn. And you're just kind of playing out the numbers and just thinking, well, you know what? Maybe it's pretty unlikely that he plays all 3 permanents in one turn. Maybe he's going to be stranded with 2 cards. Maybe he has a Leyline of Sanctity in his hand. Maybe he has a couple of War of Inventions.
Ancient Grudge on the top here.
Oh, wow.
And I don't think there's too much that Salvato can do, apart from perhaps...
Cycle is on the stack, but Jean-Emmanuel also has another Street Wraith.
He's done it there. We saw the Lantern of Insight in order to shuffle away the Ancient Grudge, but it wasn't enough. The double Street Wraith while the Death Shadow is attacking. This went just about as badly as it possibly could have here for Salvato.
This is going really poorly. He thought he was safe. He had that Welding Jar on the battlefield, but... Jean-Emmanuel has Ancient Grudge, meaning he can remove the Ensnaring Bridge twice and potentially get him for lethal. Luis Salvatto needs to find either another Welding Jar. Another Welding Jar won't do. He needs to find Ensnaring Bridge.
He needs to find a second Ensnaring Bridge.
He cannot find War of Invention. He does not have access to a 3rd blue source. He absolutely needs to find another Ensnaring Bridge here because Jean-Emmanuel can go end of turn Ancient Grudge, your Ensnaring Bridge. Luis Salvatto can try to save it with the Welding Jar, but then he can flash back the Ancient Grudge to get that bridge off the board.
Depraz has played this one masterfully here, and it looks like a judge is stepping in for just a moment. Let's have a listen and see what's happening in there.
He didn't give me the instruction to read it.
Okay. I didn't say anything.
Yeah, he didn't say anything.
Okay, so yeah, you both receive a warning. Even if you know the card for King's Rocket, please take care of the lantern, okay? So we can continue from here.
So I understand what's happened here. It looks like Depraz, after having cycled his Street Wraith in response to the shuffle trigger from the Lantern of Insight, he actually revealed the top card of his library. We saw this happen a fair bit with Courser of Crufix, with these effects even after the Courser was removed. It counts as looking at extra cards, and so because neither player actually did anything to rectify this mistake once the top card was flipped, they're both going to receive a warning. This isn't a huge deal. Right. This is just to make sure, I mean, it's just to apply consistent and fair rulings across all games of Magic.
Yeah, you're just so used to kind of, once the Lantern's on the board, you're just so used to playing the entire game where both cards are revealed the entire time. It's just so rare that you see Lantern of Insight get sacrificed, and so it's easy to just kind of just forget that it's no longer on the battlefield.
Salvatto also receiving a warning because he didn't make it clear that the card was not exiled, and I wasn't a huge fan of his response there, but all the same, it looks like this is the judge's final ruling on the matter, and that's all done and dusted. Again, a warning at this sort of level, not a huge worry for either of these players, just essentially a reminder for them to be a little bit more sharp when it comes to staying on top of things there. So now we see here Jean-Emmanuel Depraz once again putting himself in a terrific position after having the double Street Wraith to cycle away to make sure that Ancient Grudge got into the hand. So as we see now, things are set to continue here. Judges right now still in conference about that issue there, making sure that they're all on the same page about how they want it to ultimately be resolved.
We go to damage.
So, right now, this Street Wraith, and a very timely reminder there from Jean-Emmanuel. He reminds us,
so
yes,
this is 9 damage, it looks like, damage. Right? No. It's 7 damage because he shrank it with his own Liliana.
That's true.
And so now he's representing lethal with that Ancient Grudge in hand. So, again, Luis does really need to find an Ensnaring Bridge. And he doesn't have a Lantern in play either. This is going to be really difficult.
Liliana of the Veil now for Depraz. Both players discarding a card. A Lantern in the hand of Salvato, so that's hit the bin as well. He's going to have to find something special off the top here. Traverse the Ulvenwald for Depraz, and I think he's going to... What's he going to go and find here? It's a hostage taker all out of nowhere.
I was actually looking at a sideboard and was wondering if he was going to actually bring this in, because not only the common target for hostage taker, creature, but guess what? Also gets artifacts.
Yep, a huge flavor violation, but the hostage taker is able to take for somehow a bridge hostage. So this is going to be another answer that Depraz has here for this Ensnaring Bridge, as we see a search for Azcan to trigger. And I tell you what, Depraz is teched out to the max here. He is so ready to beat this Ensnaring Bridge, Paul.
Yeah, now he needs to find like multiple Ensnaring Bridges here. And I think that's it. I don't think
there's a way forward.
Yep.
Luis Salvatto is on 8 life. Depraz has 2 lethal attackers, and there we go. He has to pack them up. The Lantern control player, Luis Salvatto, has gone down in game number 4, and once again, Paul, a 5th game decider in our quarterfinals between Lantern Control and 5-color Traverse Shadow. Truly impressive stuff from the Frenchman there. He really obviously knows this matchup inside and out. He's obviously put in the hours. And right now, it is all down to this final game between these two players. Let's have a look at what's going on in their sideboards. Kick things off with Luis Salvato. Paul, why don't you call out across the myriad of options that he has here? What are we looking at?
So we're looking at, just a lot of one-ofs. He doesn't want to kind of dilute his deck too much, so he wants just a lot of little answers here and there. We saw that he boarded in the Leyline of Sanctity and searched for Escanta, Leyline of Sanctity to kind of help against the hand disruption. We also saw Welding Jar because he was aware of the fact that Jan is certainly going to bring an Ancient Grudge, and he does have those Abrupt Decays, and he wants to make sure he can protect that Ensnaring Bridge, and that is very, very important. And I think that's about it. He could also potentially bring in another copy of the Pithing Needle if he's concerned about Liliana. But I think the most important cards that he's looking to bring in here is both the Leyline of Sanctity, Welding Jar, and also, of course, that Abrupt Decay to deal with those Death Shadows.
Well, let's have a look at Jean-Emmanuel Depraz as well. He's got, of course, that Hostage Taker. We saw that be ultimately decisive in our previous game there, Paul. But what else have you got your eye on here? Godless Shrine into Lingering Souls, an interesting post-board option for Depraz, but he'll be taking a different angle for sure.
Yeah, not for this matchup. Lingering Souls is for matchups like Affinity and kind of slower mid-range matchups. Here, I think anything that has a way to interact with artifacts is what I'd be looking to bring in. So I'm looking at Hostage Taker, of course, the 2 copies of Ancient Grudge, and even that 1 copy of the Maelstrom Pulse. I know it's kind of a slower spell, but it does also answer that Leyline of Sanctity that Luis has in his sideboard, which would then turn on his hand disruption. Now, again, we saw one of the most important cards in the matchup is that Ancient Grudge. The games go long.
Yeah.
You see lots of cards, right? And if you don't find that Pyxis of Pandemonium, that Ancient Grudge is just a free card that's really difficult to deal with. It forced Luis to sacrifice his Lantern of Insight because he could not afford, Jan, to find that Ancient Grudge. So I think the matchup just might actually swing. And this is just a common thing that happens when you have a deck sideboarded against a deck that's built around artifacts. This everybody's ready for Affinity.
Yeah.
Guess what's also good against guess what? The same cards are also just good against Lantern decks, right? Stony Silence, Ancient Grudge. That's in everybody's sideboard. So it's really important that Luis got the game 1 wins, which he did. But now we're talking about sideboard matchups, and it gets much, much more difficult.
Yeah, I think that's a very key component of modern Magic is the role that sideboarding plays. It's not an area that's particularly overlooked in Modern, perhaps in Standard a little bit more so, but in Modern, people know the importance of having a robust and diversified 15. And here and now, we're going to see, you're exactly right, cards like Ancient Grudge, cards like Stony Silence, this is what Lantern players fear post-board, and they're always great inclusions. Affinity is the emblematic aggro deck of the format. It's been around for donkey's years, and Lantern Control, unfortunately for it takes splash damage from the fact that Affinity is so good.
Right.
A great start here for Luis Salvato with an
that turn 1 Glimmer Void.
Number 1. Oh no, risky stuff here for Salvato.
But Jan does not have an actual a turn 1 way to deal with that Mishra's Bauble. So the important thing here is just Luis not actually using that Bauble until he's deployed other artifacts onto the battlefield.
Just muscle memories it? just does it just because he's used to it? No. Glimmer Void is a bit of a risky play, of course, when your opponent is able to clear all those artifacts out of the way. I imagine Salvato is across this one. He's not going to lose to a little brain fart here.
Yeah, so this is the type of hand that Luis really wishes that he had a card like Leyline of Sanctity, because Jan is working with both Inquisition of Kozilek and a Thoughtseize, and so he can't get all the hand disruption out of his hand. It'll be interesting to see if he just chooses to go for a threat, something like a Liliana the Last Hope or Death Shadow here instead.
Yeah, it looks like Depraz is going to be able to tear Salvato's hand to shreds here, removing both the Codex Shredder and critically the Ancient Stirring. Salvato already in rough shape, and Depraz hasn't even made a play.
Right, but Salvato has a really important piece of the puzzle here. He has a really important card that helps him fight through the hand disruption. He's got an Academy Ruins in hand. So even if Jan strips apart his hand and takes that Codex Shredder and other artifacts out of his hand, Luis does have the ability to put those cards back on top of his library and put up a pretty good fight. So
that is true, but
it's actually not looking that bad.
It's a very slow engine for Salvato, though, the Ancient Ruins there, or the Academy Ruins, I should say. And it means that it opens the window, at least for Jean-Emmanuel Depraz, to put some early pressure on, right? Like, like he wants to get his life total down nice and low. He wants to get those Death Shadows out and start chucking the 1s and 2s towards Salvato's head before he can get these loops going, get the Academy Ruins Codex Shredder value game going. And, I mean, Salvato ultimately picks the Death Shadow. He recognises on what battle he's got to, what hill he's got to die here. And it's back to Depraz now to find if he can put some early pressure on in turn number 1.
Yeah, so Luis just giving Jan all of the hand disruption effects because he's pretty close to just kind of emptying out his hand. So this means that, additional hand disruption effects that he draws later in the game are likely going to be dead draws. But I think he found an Abrupt Decay there.
Yeah,
that's a
cycles away
big draw.
straightway.
Oh, into Maelstrom Pulse.
Okay, well, Depraz has plenty of removal options for what Salvato is going to attempt to leverage here. Marsh Flats, going to search out a land. And it's going to be an Overgrown Tomb here. Yeah, and it looks like we're going to slam down a hand disruption spell here, Paul.
Yeah, and likely taking that Ancient Stirrings out of Luis's hand.
And we are going to open with an Inquisition. And let's see what's up here. So we've already had a peek at Salvato's hand earlier while he was in the process of resolving his Inquisition. And we can see once again, right now, all that Jean-Emmanuel Depraz wants to do is pile on as much pressure as possible while this window is open.
Yeah, so one thing that I would be a little bit concerned about is, if Jean takes one of these artifacts or Ancient Stirrings out of Luis's hand, and let's say Luis plays Codex Shredder, then Luis might feel like it's safe because he already saw his hand to crack that Mishra's Bauble.
Oh, no.
In which case, John can respond with an Abrupt Decay on the artifact.
Oh,
so
dear.
We'll see if that happens. Luis can also just choose to play a little bit safer here. So I don't know if he's going to leave himself that vulnerable, but it is a possibility.
Okay, so away goes the Codex Shredder. And now an Ancient Stirrings.
Ooh, and there's also a Pithing Needle. And Pithing Needle is interesting because Luis does know about the 2 Planeswalkers in John's hand, so he might decide to go for that. He could also go for Pixis, but he doesn't have a Lantern yet.
So difficult position here for Salvato. Which Liliana do you name? Because as soon as you name one, your opponent just plays the other.
Yeah. It looks like you might even consider the Bauble here.
So Salvato is going to choose this Mishra's Ball by the look of things. Yes, indeed. Another important way for the deck to sort of thin itself out a little bit. 0-mana draw spell. We've seen how powerful these can be in Modern. Glimmer Void sticking around now. A bit of Glimmer Void insurance as well.
Yeah. Oh, it looks like he just wants to empty out his hand, so the Bauble does make sense. Now he wants to find another 0-mana artifact here if possible, and if he doesn't, he might just take a land instead, which would then turn off John's hand disruption spells. Yep, and he goes for the land. So now Luis does not have a card in his hand that can be Thought Seized.
So, Salvato, 2 cards in hand for him, both of them lands. We're back over to Depraz now, who looks like he's just going to fire off this Thought Seize into the blind without anything to hit. Or does he know the no? He knows the contents.
He might
of
not,
hand,
because
right?
Luis, you have to think that Luis consciously did that to make sure that he doesn't actually get Thought Seized, and he actually knows that Luis has a. He actually knows that Luis has Abrupt Decay in hand. Wait, did Jan only have one land?
Didn't find
I actually
another
just
land.
Completely missed that.
Yep, he didn't find another land. So
Oh
double
my
Liliana,
goodness.
Tarmogoyf, Thought Seize, Maelstrom Pulse, and Abrupt Decay. He's got a great hand, but no lands to leverage it. And an ensnaring bridge here for Salvato means that the brakes have well and truly been put on here.
All right, now it's Thought Seize time. Is he going to hit? Oh, he hit.
Hit a Thought Seize.
And that Academy Ruins is going to do a lot of work. And that's not a land. That's a Snapcaster Mage on top.
Oh, dear. Oh, dear. Salvato has been given a lot of breathing room to fix himself up here.
He's got so much time here now.
Another Thought Seize here for Salvato after the first one was taken away. Salvato has been able to draw a bunch of extra cards thanks to those Mishra's Baubles, which goes some way in explaining the way that he's recovered from that two-card do-nothing hand before.
Right, and now there's a couple of Planeswalkers, but John is pretty far away from playing them as he sees a Snapcaster on top. I think he's probably going to go for the Abrupt Decay first, as that is one of the ways to interact with the Ensnaring Bridge. But John does have 3 high-impact cards in both the Planeswalkers and the Maelstrom Pulse, but Luis does have a lot of time here.
So Abrupt Decay has been taken here by Luis Salvato. That's going to hit the bin there. And now Depraz has his mail returned to him. 5 cards remaining in his hand, and none of them castable just yet. And even that Tarmogoyf doesn't do a whole bunch against Salvato right now.
And Luis has... The last card is a land, right? Because he just drew that Thoughtseize?
Last card is a Pixis of Pandemonium.
Oh, okay.
After the Thoughtseize, yeah.
So Salvato is going to be able to start putting things together now. Our first mill rock, as they're known, cards that eat the top cards of players' libraries, and a snapcaster off the top. Depraz, the victim of a very unfortunate string of draw steps here. And his opponent doesn't even have a lantern out.
Yeah, and so the reason why Luis Salvatto gets a Mishra's Bubble here is he can just... It's effectively like drawing a card, but he gets a little additional information with his Pixis of Pandemonium. He saw that a land was on top of John's deck, and then used the Pixis to try to mana screw John, but there was another land on top. Okay, so John can put a threat onto the battlefield this turn. He does have a Tarmogoyf. However, he is still staring at that ensnaring bridge on the battlefield.
So Salvato there with the Academy Ruin activation. It's like the budget version of the
budget lantern.
Yeah, lantern.
Is he going to do it again?
Alpha mode lantern. He does not going to take a draw step.
I think this is the draw off the bubble. And then now he has to decide if he wants to draw a random card. So it looks like he has something that he actually wants to play this turn.
Lantern of Insight.
Right.
Nice one. Nice one for him there. That's exactly what I wanted. And
a
pithing needle off the top.
Oh, this is big.
Yeah, Salvato is starting to put all the pieces in play. This is the 3-card lock. It is Lantern of Insight, Ensnaring Bridge, and then any card that removes cards off the top of the library. That's it. Pixis of Pandemonium.
I think Luis's plan now is to just prevent John from getting to 3 lands. So I feel like he's going to use Academy Ruins and try to get the put the Codex Shredder on top of his deck here. I believe there's a Codex Shredder in the yard.
Yeah, it was.
And this is he's just going to slowly try to lock the game away here. Oh, he can actually he can allow Jean to keep the Verdant Catacombs on top, name Pithing Needle on Verdant Catacombs, preventing the activation.
Yeah, he's done exactly that.
Oh, and we're getting there. The lock.
Rather than the risk of 3 running lands there for Depraz, looks like Salvato instead is just going to make Depraz draw a stone cold blank.
Oh, it's another Verdant Catacombs.
Another one off the top for Depraz. He's drawing blank pieces of paper off the top of his library. Just big old slices of ham here for him, Paul Cheon.
Yeah.
Oh no, the Frenchman's fortunes are looking very, very grim right now.
So Luis can play nice and slow here. He can even choose to keep that welding jar and put it onto the battlefield, as it would give him protection against the Maelstrom Pulse that John has in hand.
So Depraz plays these Catacombs Verdoyance here, but the welding jar off the top is another piece of insurance against an Ancient Grudge.
Here you go.
Oh dear.
Yeah, and now we're getting to the point where it's just so unlikely. Jean has a chance.
A chance.
But it's really, really low.
Oh yeah. No, he's like, he's at the county fair. There's like that huge big teddy bear at the top, and he's just like, I could win it.
Yeah, there's a chance. There's always a chance.
There's a chance if those cans haven't been nailed down to the bottom of the shooting gallery.
But now we're at the point where there are 3 mill rocks on the battlefield with that Lantern of Insight. It is all but over here now.
I don't think Jean-Emmanuel Depraz is ever going to draw another relevant card in this game. He plays another blank piece of paper. That Verdant Catacombs does nothing.
And that given that Tarmogoyf does nothing, Luis can now just continue to dig further and further for additional copies of Codex Shredders to just make it even more difficult that John can string together like 5 or 6 Abrupt Decays on top of his library.
And he's found a Whir of Invention. That card represents whatever he needs it to be. It can be another Codex Shredder, another Ensnaring Bridge if he's really worried about it. But
he wants to draw that Ancient Stirring. So he's taking it really slow here.
Surprising.
Yeah.
Surprising for a Lantern control player.
Well, especially here, sometimes you want to end the game and you're a little more aggressive with your milling, but not now. No. And of course, Whir of Invention is an instant.
Yep, Whir of Invention going to go away. He doesn't want to draw that Ancient Stirrings after all. I mean, it would have been a great pickup for him, but ultimately he decides he doesn't need it. And we're going to search through the library. And what have we found here? It looks like it's going to be another Codex Shredder.
Yeah, at this point, Jean is...
So despite worrying for 2 by the look of things, easy. Just pop it straight back on top.
And we're now getting to the point where Luis can be a little more aggressive with the milling, but it looks like, nope, why bother? Just make sure you draw blank every single turn.
4 cards, 5 cards now off the top for Salvato. Leyline of Sanctity amongst them, but it's going to be another Glimmer Void, which is put straight into play. Luis Salvato, a man who certainly favours his shortcuts. Pithing Needle as well to just really wrap this present up good and tight with a whole lot of sticky tape here, because I don't see a way out here for Jean-Emmanuel Depraz. Well, I mean, what does he need? He needs a sequence of like 10 cards that all do something.
Well, but he also needs lands, right? And he's not drawing relevant lands because there's that Pithing Needle on top. And at this point, I could also see Luis just play the Pithing Needle now on the Polluted Delta, which would further limit Jean from actually finding lands.
And the thing about that play is not only does it blank his next draw step, it blanks any further polluted deltas. It means that they're safe for Salvatto to let him, let him draw.
And look what Luis did here. He decided to go and use that Codex Shredder to get a Word of Invention.
Which was on the top here.
Which would then allow him to find another Codex Shredder, because he has the Academy Ruins to get the Codex Shredder that he sacrificed back, and then he can also use the Word of Invention to put another one onto the battlefield.
Pithing Needle on the stack here. We'll see if Depraz has some kind of response.
Verdant Catacombs and Polluted Delta.
So it looks like Polluted Delta is the name here for Depraz. And
no.
Oh, and another Verdant Catacombs off the top. Oh no, poor Jean-Emmanuel here. It's looking very, very grim for him indeed.
And if you notice, Luis Salvatto did use that Codex Shredder to put Pyxis of Pandemonium into his own graveyard because he has that Academy Ruins on the battlefield. He can use the Academy Ruins to basically put that Pyxis on top of his library. And now we're at a situation where there's three Codex Shredders on the battlefield and a Codex Shredder and a Pyxis. I believe those are all of his rocks that he can use to put onto the battlefield. He's going to have 6, and he's getting close to the point where he can just go million for 6, million for 6, million for 6, and end the game fairly quickly, actually.
And we've seen exactly that take place there, Paul. Well called from you, as we saw the ancient Academy Ruins put the Codex Shredder on top of the Salvatto's library, slammed into play, and now we're going to enter into this phase where the Lantern Control player can start being very aggressive.
So he doesn't want to give him a shuffle effect, so I imagine he's going to get rid of that. You can start. You can probably mill that card as well,
yep,
and now we can start. But he's going to give him to Tarmogoyf. You can just play it slow here still.
So Tarmogoyf, as the biggest, baddest thumper you'll ever see, is not
going to
do too much damage.
He can mill himself now because he doesn't want the Inquisition. But I think I don't even know especially what he's looking for, because he has all of the mill rocks currently.
Yeah, maybe another whir. Get that.
I guess he's just filling up his graveyard here. There's a Leyline of Sanctity, but he does have the second Pyxis in his graveyard, which he can use. But it looks like he's also just choosing to play Leyline of Sanctity. Why not?
Playing it very, very safe indeed here. Yeah. Leyline of Sanctity.
Keep in mind that even though Luis is using the Codex Shredder on himself and kind of thinning out his library, because he has that Academy Ruins on the battlefield, he can never deck himself as long as that Academy Ruins is in play.
So away go 4 cards here, and an Ancient Grudge as well. So away goes the Ancient Grudge as a result of that Pyxis. That's the perfect hit with the Pyxis, of course. You don't want the Ancient Grudge in the bin, no way, no how.
And Academy Ruins 4 Pyxis of Pandemonium here, I'm assuming.
So the full 6 are going to be assembled, and this is looking very, very grim here for
To the bitter end!
But yes, he's going down fighting. Look at this. The hot blood of the Frenchman refuses to surrender here, and he's going to go all the way to the end of this match.
He's going to probably Codex Shredder that. Okay, and now what is this? Liliana.
Gets to draw it.
He has to draw it, but he can't cast it, as he has 3 fetch lands, and all of them have been Pithing Needled.
Yep, he's only got 2 actual lands in play. Those fetch lands do absolutely nothing, as indeed does this latest edition of another Verdant Catacombs.
Yeah, getting rid of the cycle effects. You can keep the Inquisition, but at this point, Luis does feel fairly safe. He is just going for the win now, as, of course, that Inquisition would not really have done anything.
No, it does absolutely nothing in the face of the Leyline of Sanctity here. Whir of Invention off the top for Salvato. He is overwhelmingly favoured to win here. Depraz is doing a mighty show of playing it out to the bitter end,
to the bitter end. But this is the game. This is over. Yeah. Luis can maybe find another ensnaring bridge just in case something crazy happens.
We're for 3.
Yeah.
What is it going to be here? Doesn't have too many cards in his library. It's going to be a Welding Jar.
How many bridges does he actually have after sideboard? Oh, he might have hit some, actually. Oh. So what I think happened is there might be some bridges underneath that Pyxis of Pandemonium.
Yeah.
Because he did work for 3.
Yeah, I did see one in his library as he went past it, but obviously looking for that Welding Jar instead.
But he went for the Welding Jar, okay.
Keeping things nice and safe, as we see here.
All right.
The rest of Depraz's library continue to be just absolutely shredded here.
We did talk about it. It's basically like a 1 damage burn spell.
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, it's just
in your library for life total. That's it.
That's starts at 53.
Just hard mode, that's all.
Yeah, Magic the Gathering Nightmare mode has been engaged, I think, for both players here. Salvato's on the winning side of it, however, and Lantern Control looks set to make an appearance in the top 4 of Pro Tour Rivals of Ixalan. What a wild ride we've had so far this weekend, and of course the hits don't stop. The party will continue deep into Sunday now.
He starts using himself.
Continuing all the way to our
Why
final.
not? You're now at 6.
Away goes Liliana with the Veil.
How many cards are left? Doesn't look like a lot.
No.
That is a thin stack.
That is not a fat stack. It is indeed a thin stack, and it doesn't look like Depraz has too many more ways out of this game. And the lock assembled by Salvato at an early point, and he's done incredibly well to keep himself well and truly in control of this game. Only just putting on those finishing touches, the ribbons and the bows, the bells and the whistles all coming out of the cupboard for Salvato as he finishes things off very tightly.
What is that? That is 5 cards. So you're just going to use all of them.
1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 going to hit the bin, and that is going to be that. Jean-Emmanuel Depraz going out very unfortunately in style, and an extension, the winner's handshake there for Luis Salvatto. Very, very happy with himself after slamming himself into the semi-finals with Lantern Control. One of the most polarizing decks in the format, but I tell you what, fans of the archetype will be up in arms about the strong performance it's put in this weekend, Paul.
Yeah, good. He's still representing the Lantern 9, the lone hero left, representing all the fans of Lantern Control. And, you know, Luis clearly has a lot of practice with this deck, just mechanically. He just knows all the little things you can do with the deck, just putting out every single tiny bit of percentage points that he can.
He's done exceptionally well to get himself all the way to the semi-finals, but I tell you what, Paul, he's got his work cut out for him in the coming hours, because he is up against Ken Yukihiro in the semis, if I'm not mistaken, which means that he will be up against Burning Inquiry into triple Hollow 1 on turn 1 every time, I'm more or less certain.
Yeah, I mean, the key to that matchup, get that ensnaring bridge in play as quickly as possible, and try not to get Hollow 2, 3, 4, who knows?
Yeah, we're going to see exactly how things go, but of course, before that, we've got more quarterfinals coming your way. Ladies and gentlemen, what a pleasure it has been for team coverage so far to bring you coverage of this event, but of course, it's all continuing for so much longer, so stick around. We've got to go to a break right now. After that, the back half of our quarterfinals will be coming your way before the semis, and of course, the crowning of the champion of Pro Tour Rivals of Ixalan. That's Paul Cheon. My name's Riley Knight. What a pleasure it's been for us to hang out with you so far this morning, and we're looking forward to your company as the day continues. We'll be back live from Bilbao, Spain in just a few moments. Don't go anywhere.
Hello and welcome back to the news desk. Maria, Simon, Rich, Luis. BDM is on the floor with another Luis Salvatto.
Thanks, Maria. I'm here with Luis Salvato. Luis, you had to play land destruction there in the quarterfinals. Tell me about what's going through your head in those early turns of that last game.
Well, that last game, when I saw his hand, it was plenty of insane spells. So I tried to take out one threaten, the shadow, and then try to be a lantern or Mishra Bubble and a Miguel Rock. Try to not let him draw another land. Or the second one, it was okay, but not the third one. And it works perfectly. It was sometimes you don't lock the spells, but you lock the lands. And that was happened because he has a lot of removals, counter spells, any kind of disruption. So that's how you can win a game also.
Yeah, and with being able to see the top of his deck, you knew the fetch lands were coming up, and you were able to lock those down with Pithy Needle. Yeah. It was a pretty amazing sequence.
Yeah, the thing is, in the game 3 and 4, I misread the game. The thing is, I couldn't test the game post-board very much. Yesterday was late and I couldn't. And I tried to play with 2 abrupt decays to try to kill the first of his creatures so I can play around his Stubborn Denial. That is a really strong card. Sometimes if he has a creature and a denial, I lose. And I think it was a good idea. But then I realized he cybered into Liliana. He made a really excellent play with the shadows, the street raids. And I thought, okay, I need another plan. And I board again all the Pithy Needles, 3 on total, and out the abrupt decays, and try to win in that way, and it worked perfectly. And also in game 3 and 4, I was too lucky and find the ley lines in the opening hand, and didn't work. So I say, okay, if this doesn't work, this card is doing for this time, and I have in this time and I lose. What's happening? So I try another plan, and it worked perfectly.
Worked perfectly. You're on to the semifinals. Good luck the rest of the way here at Pro Tour Rivals of Ixalan.
Thank you very much.
Right, thanks to BDM and Luis Salvatto. Let's take a look at the bracket for you then. Ken Yukihiro is through to the semi-finals. Luis Salvatto is through to the semi-finals. We go now to the top part of the bracket. Viren against Mengucci, Dominguez against Thompson. Maria, what's going on?
All right, Pascal Viren, there you see him on your screen, Team Card Market. First Pro Tour top 8. This is his 9th Pro Tour he has attended. He has 2 GP top 8s. Playing, let's take a look at his deck. Blue, red, Pyromancer. All right, Simon, tell me, how does this deck work?
Yeah, this is actually something a little bit special. We've seen Young Pyromancer, but usually in Mardu decks. Here it's the traditional blue-red tempo control build, which will control especially creature decks very well, and then generate card advantage with Ancestral Vision, Snapcaster Mage, and Young Pyromancer itself.
All right, let's take a look at his opponent, Andrea Mengucci. There you see him here, their Team Connected company, his 3rd Pro Tour top 8 from 20 starts, former World Magic Cup champion, of course, with Italy. They got into the top 8 this year. And taking a look at his deck, 5-color humans, one of the top decks at the tournament. But how was he feeling this morning? Well, BDM had to talk with him.
Brian David Marshall here backstage with Andrea Mengucci as he prepares for his quarterfinal, or actually, should I say, as he watches his teammates prepare for his quarterfinal. He's got Christian Calcano and Li Shitian helping him test here.
It's the best testing, watching rather than playing, because you get to see other opinion over yours. I love it much more.
Now, who's playing which side of the matchup here?
Kalk is playing humans, and Shitian, the control master, is playing control. Actually, it's just modern master, so whatever plays is a master.
Quite a sweat yesterday for that last spot into the top 8. Yeah. Now that you're here in the top 8, what's going to be the key for you advancing to the semifinals? Where do you think this match boils down to?
They have a lot of removal spell, and we have a lot of creatures. So it's just a matter of if we do more creatures, then they draw removal spell. A key will be to just draw very few lands, very likely a Vial. Ether Vial is just so good in this matchup because They just, it's hard for them to play around everything. Sometimes you just get them with Talis Lieutenant on the Lightning Bolt, in response to Lightning Bolt. And so yeah, the key is just to draw a lot of spell and hope they flood more than you.
What's the most important card for you in this matchup? Is it Aether Vial?
Yeah, I definitely say so. Aether Vial is the best against them.
All right, Andrea Mengucci, keep an eye out for an Aether Vial from him here in the quarterfinals at Pro Tour Rivals of Ixalan.
All right, great stuff to hear from Mengucci. Let's look at the other quarterfinal we're about to see. Jerry Thompson against Javier Dominguez. And let's begin with Jerry Thompson. So he is going to be playing a Mardu Pyromancer deck. They see him Platinum Pro, $140,000. Multiple Grand Prix champion, of course, Pro Tour Armaket. Here's his deck. It is Mardu Pyromancer. So, Luis, what's going on here?
This Mardu Pyromancer deck is looking to kill every creature the opponent plays. It is at its best against decks full of creatures, which luckily Jerry is facing in the quarterfinals here.
All right, that's pretty convenient. His opponent, meanwhile, is Javier Dominguez of Spain on home turf, looking very pleased with himself as well. He might finalist from the World Championship, of course, double Grand Prix champion as well. Now, his deck is 5-color humans. We'll talk to Luis about that in a moment. But first, here's Javier on the eve of his quarterfinal appearance.
Brian David Marshall here backstage. Javier Dominguez is playtesting for his quarterfinal matchup against Jerry Thompson. Javier, let me ask you, how has playtesting been going?
Well, it's more like analyzing than playtesting, but yeah, I guess looking not very good.
Not very good?
Not very good, yeah.
It's not as bad as we thought, though.
Yeah, like, I think matchup's not very good, but, you know, humans are humans. Like, we're the most popular tree in the earth, so... Maybe.
what if you're going to win this match, what should people at home be looking for? What's the key for you to turning the tide here?
I think him drawing like 1 or 2 too many lands, so he doesn't have enough spells to catch up with my spells. Like I'm likely more, like I think I will have more spells on him in the early stages because I have less dead cards. But I think that's it. Like I think I have to win like either super fast or just capitalize on him drawing too many lands. Yeah.
All right, now you said analyzing what you have his deck spread out in front of you. What are the cards that really worry you here?
Well, it's mostly about lightning bolts and final pushes and this kind of cards. Like I think it's just me against his removal. Like I play this deck a lot more than I fill my deck, so I think yeah, if I can fight through the early waves removal, I think he doesn't have many ways to catch up. Like he has Anger of the God on the sideboard, but it's only 1 copy, so. Yeah, I think it should be right if I survive the first turns with some creatures on the board.
All right, good luck in the quarterfinals, Javier. Have fun.
Thanks, BDM. Really cool to hear from Javier before the big match. So, Luis, what do we need to look for from Javier to ensure that he's got a foot up above Jerry Thompson?
He really just needs to come out quickly and hopefully disrupt Jerry with the combination of Kite Sail Freebooter and Meddling Mage. Those 2 cards work very well in concert. But really, Javier just needs to get ahead and stay ahead because if he falls behind, the cards in his deck are much worse individually than Jerry's.
So who do you see winning? Jerry Thompson, Javier Dominguez, Pyromancer or humans?
I've got Jerry ahead here.
All right, so that's 1 to the non-humans. And then the other one, Pascal Viren, Mengucci, Blue-Red Pyromancer against 5-color humans.
Pyromancer again. I think that humans is not at its best in this bracket.
Okay, well, let's find out if he's right because it's time for the second set of quarterfinals here at Pro Tour Rivals of Ixalan.